Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Good morning, Bryan College Station. Welcome to the December 23rd edition of TexAgs Live. I'm Ryan Brauninger in the host chair today, so you know we've got a B-team edition of the program today. Olin Buchanan to start the Go Hour. It doesn't really make much sense. I think you came up with a name for this the last time.
Hour.
The Bro Hour.
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah.
The Bro Hour or the Go Hour
we're
presented by. Yeah, we are. We're almost, kindred spirits.
Yes, definitely.
Sometimes. Presented by the Warehouse at CC Creation. Maroon never looked so good as it does with Maroon U. I'm headed there after the show to finish up some Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
TexAgs Radio presented by the TexAgs Live. I did it. Presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. In the Rollo Insurance Studio, Callie Garner with us this morning, barely. In the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Callie, good morning.
Good morning. How's it going?
Why were you late?
I wasn't late.
What happened?
I broke the orange juice.
You broke the orange juice. That's a phrase that I don't think that's ever.
You broke the orange juice.
Like the jug or whatever you call it.
Well, take us through it. We're interested now.
I just was grabbing a water bottle out of the fridge and it slipped out of my hand and I guess it hit the plastic just right and it went everywhere.
Hold on. What hit the plastic?
My water bottle.
Your water bottle
broke the orange juice
Yes.
container? Nick, do you believe this?
Yes, are you kidding me? It's Callie we're talking about. Also, our opening shot got her walking into her spot over at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Just embarrassing.
So
embarrassing.
I know that blonde jokes are unfair.
Oh, God. Is there a blonde sitting behind you currently, or is she late too?
Usually.
Oh, Kay's there. Those two, you talk about kindred spirits. Now, I want to understand this a little bit better, Callie, and I'm so glad that we're starting the show this way. Your water bottle broke the jug for the orange juice.
Yeah.
And that water bottle is not frozen.
Mm-mm.
Quality of everything.
I'll bring it down here for the next segment and I'll show it.
The mechanics of how that happened.
Oh, I know. Because I was so confused. I just saw orange juice going everywhere.
That's the reason you were late, is because there was orange juice all over the ground?
Yeah.
And you were cleaning it up?
Yeah. And I'm not done. I need to go back.
It's going to be a sticky... I don't think there's going to be anybody in the office today, so you've got some time. So if Callie may be in and out because she's cleaning up, she's playing janitor today in the office. If you want to interact with the show, interact with Callie, keep her from having to clean the floors and the refrigerator upstairs, 979-693-1150. Put her to work in the social center, Angry Elephant Social Center. Like your politics, love your bar. Find an Angry Elephant near you in Bryan College Station, Magnolia, San Antonio. OB, good morning.
Good morning.
We have a lot to get to. I have been tracing and retracing steps across the state of Texas. I will continue to do that through Christmas. I think there was a point yesterday where I did the math. It was like I had driven 9 hours in the last 24 hours. So 9 of the last 24 hours I was driving on the road. It's just what it is this time of year when I've got state championships and then you come right back and then you've got Christmas in San Antonio. Yeah. I got a Christmas in Beaumont.
You got a Christmas in San Antonio.
Yeah, my wife's grandmother has a place out between Schertz and Cibolo. So out there yesterday, really enjoyed that, obviously. But I told you when I walked in this morning, I may need your help because between all that driving with state championships and then chasing this transfer portal stuff And oh, by the way, in the middle of that, A&M gets a commitment from a class of 2026 tight end from California. I'm just going to be, heavy is the burden that falls on your shoulders this morning. So I hope you're ready.
I got strong shoulders. I really don't, but they're going to be strong enough for this.
Hey, OB is coming in from the gym this morning, just absolutely
Limping.
bodying Nuno. Nuno's all about the, discipline, get up early. And here's OB coming in like, hey,
and
he's knocking it out.
Yeah, and he's in here on December 23rd. Where's David?
Yeah, well, first of all, David has more of a life than I do. Probably a bigger bank account, too. So he can afford to take days off. I show up every day because I'm afraid I don't want to give TexAgs any reason to be going like,
do we really need
this guy around, especially since I'm so close to retirement? I gotta finish the job here.
Well, if you go into retirement and you need some planning with your investments, tax, and estate, you know where you can go?
Yeah, I can go to the Cool Zone, the Holistic Planning Cool Zone.
Yeah, and it's a private equity firm. It had just started to acquire ownership stakes in teams for years. Professional sports investing was reserved for the ultra wealthy. Not anymore.
No.
If you are interested in learning more about professional sports investing and to determine if it may be appropriate for you, Holistic Planning is your ticket. Go to investinprosports.com today. We would usually be over there with David. I don't like to stand up and move around if I don't have to. I'm a big fan of sitting.
Well, when we do that over there, we have stools.
I didn't even know that. I thought y'all stood up the whole time.
No, we sit.
But then if we do use the stools, and we make Nick work more than Nick has to.
Yeah.
I like to keep Nick as unoccupied as possible whenever I host.
Okay. Well,
I like to keep everybody as unoccupied as possible. I don't like to be a burden. I don't like to feel like I'm a burden. What about you?
Does Liucci ever make you feel like a burden?
Yeah, but when I first started working here and I didn't know that he is constantly trolling 24/7.
Yeah.
But
now,
I
would like to be like.
Sometimes he calls me and I go, "Who does this work on?" Because it's like this act, this shtick, right? And he starts down and he starts playing his character. And I'm like, who does this work on? Because you have to call other people and do the same thing to get a rise out of them. It doesn't work on me anymore. So who does it work on that's on your Rolodex of people to call every day? I have this theory that he's on the phone all the time because he doesn't like being alone with his own brain.
It's an interesting theory.
You don't want to lend any credence to it?
I don't know. I mean,
it's a hypothesis.
Yes, it is. I will. I guess that's as good a guess as anything.
Okay. Thank you for giving me some credit. What did I miss? Did I miss anything on the NASCAR or all these ads? Coffee Talk, presented by TexAgs Coffee.
Yeah.
Got to go to Maroon U.
Maroon U.
Talked about holistic planning.
Holistic planning.
Did I miss a bank or anything?
You talked probably, but you talked about David Gardner's Jewelers.
Yes.
You talked about the Rollins.
Okay, we're good. So let's talk.
We got to remember to give out pizza at some point today. Got to remember to do that.
Double Dave's.
Or pizza rolls.
The first segment every day.
We'll get to 1775.
First segment every day, and it should be a battle. All these people that want to do sponsorships with TexAgs, we'll read your full ad in segment number 1.
I think we need a TexAgs race car.
I know
that has all the.
I looked into it. I looked into it like a 2-foot, 2.5 foot model race car.
I want one of those.
Like a jacket.
The racing suits with the.
Yeah, so a full racing suit, like a onesie.
Well,
can I get Olin in a onesie from the Photoshop? Kay, can you get on that? I know
with
you
all the different logos of our sponsors.
I just want to see you in a onesie. There's a thing that's happening right now, Callie Gardner, on social media.
Well, when I go to the beach, like I'm always in a one piece.
Yikes! But it's not too much different. I've been seeing this thing where there have been men that I know that are wearing like Christmas onesies and taking pictures in them.
Really?
And I'm like, no, man, go put some real clothes
guys
on.
You know?
Like,
yes. I told him, I said, nah, man, go put real clothes on and take these pictures. They're like, it's like
how old are they?
Don't ask that question.
They're married, right?
Don't ask questions.
And it's probably their wives.
That's as much as I wanted to get into it.
They're just getting,
I just saw it and I was like, come on, man. You got to put some real clothes on.
I've seen other onesies that are not Christmas. Like,
what sites are you on?
No, like on Twitter.
On Twitter?
Like,
you follow men on Twitter that post onesies?
We're learning a lot about
We might need to go to commercial. before early commercial. Now, all right, we'll people are.
Who's the
so
best?
mad.
Who was the best team you saw this week, and who was the best player or most surprising?
So talking UIL state championships. First of all, Oz, it's a kind of a beatdown to get to AT&T Stadium and back. You know that, like Arlington, and there's a lot of hotels around it now, so that's not all that difficult. But you're there, you pull into the parking lot at 8:30, and you're not leaving till 10:30 at night. It's just a long day at a stadium. But I do really, really enjoy it, and I would never complain about a job where I'm going to watch high school football or football.
I love high school football,
and so. The most impressive team I thought was Columbus.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Coach Matt Schobel started his career at A&M, became a great at TCU. His son is the quarterback. It was sensational. He signed with TCU. His nephew, so his son, it was a cool night for the Schobel family. And they're Matt Schobel and Liucci are really good buddies.
Yeah, okay.
And so Columbus had never won a state championship before. They win the state championship. Matt Schobel's son, Adam, quarterback, wins offensive MVP. Matt Schobel's nephew, John, wins defensive MVP. So that was a really cool night for the Schobel family.
The family restaurant down there?
McKeska's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought there was a Schobel's family restaurant.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't know that. I know there's McKeska's barbecue.
No, I think there's Schobel family restaurant.
There definitely is, OB. There is.
Yeah.
There is?
I can confirm.
Okay. So Nick's probably eating there. So I bet they had a big party at Schobel's.
Well, that's probably why they've got big kids that are so athletic because they eat so well.
The best player, the best performance by a player, boy, that's tough because the quarterback at Austin Vandergriff at one point was 8 for 8 for 218 yards and 2 touchdowns. Miles Tedecki.
I saw that kid from North Crowley.
Quentin Gibson had an insane season and had a really good night against Austin Westlake. They blew the Chaparrals out in the final, that 6A Division I. Bo Bentley, the quarterback from Salina, really impressed a lot of people. There was a lot of standout performances. It's hard for me to pick one. I think the team that stood out the most for me was Columbus.
Okay.
Right. And
Columbus Cardinals.
We'll see if they lose both Schobel cousins. They're not brothers, they're cousins, but they're both going to TCU. And Adam was a kid when A&M went back into the quarterback market after Hassan Longstreet decommitted. They looked at Adam, but that was going to be tough whenever dad and uncle had played at TCU and were great, and the kids are signed there.
One of them played for the Buffalo Bills, didn't they?
Yes, that was Aaron. That is the defensive Schobel on this Columbus
team.
It's a
whole Schobel infestation. Carthage, East Texas representing. Well, they got about 10 state championships now.
I think that Scott Surratt, the head coach of Carthage, is 10-0 in state championship games.
Man, the Carthage Bulldogs, man. I used to cover
Kilgore was in the state final. They didn't do well. They played a Salina team that had been blowing the doors off everybody, though. And so Salina got the best of them. The best game, without question, 5A Division II, Richmond Randall beat South Oak Cliff.
Wasn't that like 38-34 or something like that?
38-35. And the yardage disparity was crazy. Sock had over 2 times more total yards offensively than Richmond Randall. But Richmond Randall, listen to this, returns the opening kickoff for a touchdown. They returned another kickoff for a touchdown. They hit a 40-something yard field goal. And then Sock on the other side, obviously they allow 2 touchdown returns on kickoffs. They muff a punt that gives Richmond Randall a short field, scores a touchdown. And they had to kind of run not a really hurry up field goal attempt. They're down 38-35. They're moving the ball down the field. They stall some really kind of questionable play calls. They had 2 timeouts left, and they're around the 30-yard line going in.
No, this is Randall.
No, this is Sock.
Okay.
They're down by 3 with about a minute to go, and they're kind of trying to tie it up or win the game. And they go 2 running plays on back-to-back on 2nd and 3rd down, and they burn their last timeout on before 3rd down. And then they go run again, and it stopped, minimal gain. So they run the field goal team out there with the clock moving. Now, it wasn't like sprint on and have to kick it. They got them out there with like 20 seconds on the play clock, so they had plenty of time. But it was like everything was happening right then, right now, and the Sock kicker hooks misses it left, and Richmond Randall wins. That's a program that's only in its 3rd year
Well,
of
didn't
existence.
like Katie Paytow win like in its second year or something like that? And
Katie
I know
Paytow won in theirs. It might have been their third year as well.
And I remember when
but they were
Beaumont
5A.
Westbrook won in its first year.
Did they really?
In the first year of existence. And they were the second place team, and it was the first year that they took second place teams. How did the kid from Richmond Randall, don't they have a kid from Richmond Randall that's coming to A&M?
Yes.
How did he do?
He was awesome. Again.
What's his name again?
Chase Sims.
Chase Sims.
And I wrote on our transfer portal tracker thread, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed to TexAgs, all the information about what A&M's doing in the transfer portal is happening on that thread. I would imagine that if you're listening to this program, you're pretty locked into A&M sports and what's going on. With the amount of views that thread's gotten, you've probably looked at it. But what I said on Friday night, late Friday night, after Richmond Randall beat South Oak Cliff, was A&M has got to go get defensive linemen in the transfer portal. And they did over the weekend. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. And I do not anticipate the coaching staff. You can never make bets on high school guys coming in and making an immediate impact. Some of them will, but you don't make decisions on your roster in this kind of environment, in this climate, based on true freshmen playing. But Chase Sims is going to have a chance to get in that rotation. He was sensational. He has got a big flaming green arrow pointing up.
Okay.
Like his stock has just gone through the roof. And he had a really, really good regular season, but when the playoffs started, his game went to another level. And it's not just A&M analysts that go watching that are saying this.
Yeah.
It's the guys from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. I was sitting there next to some guys from Rivals and 247 that hadn't seen him play, and they're going, holy cow, this guy can really go. I'm like, yeah, like he's a real player. So whenever we rework our TexAgs Top 100, I think we've got Chase in like the 28. I have to look it up. I think we've got him in the 20s in the state of Texas. He's going to move up into the top 15.
Now, is he interior or is he an end?
He's an interior. So he's 6'2", 307.
And just kicking butt and taking names.
Yeah, it's super explosive and plays with good leverage. And my favorite thing about him, OB, is he plays so hard. He runs to the football. He's a lot of these high school defensive linemen, if the play goes the other way, they haven't really learned to run after the ball.
Right.
A&M signed two kids that I know, and DJ Sanders DJ Sanders is a freak show athletically. But Chase Sims and Landon Rink, they play with their heads on fire. And so like
kind of like Michael Jackson. Got his head on fire. You don't remember that?
No, but I didn't think that you would make a Michael Jackson comparison to A&M defensive lineman. We're right up against the break. Right, perfect, OB. You're good at that, stopping people dead in their tracks. All right, we come back. We'll talk about A&M's success in the transfer portal, what's to come, Aggie basketball with a runaway win over Houston Christian as they get ready. I know they got one more tune-up, and then the Longhorns come to town. So a lot more to get to with OB on the Go Hour. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, welcome back to TexAgs Live. We have some technical issues, I think, with maybe some bumper music, but also my computer is just completely shut down, and I'm blaming Olin Buchanan. I was looking up Festivus.
Festivus for the rest of us?
And it's the airing of grievances.
What grievances do you want to air?
Well, I don't know. Maybe when I'm in on a good train of thought and really rolling about A&M's future on the defensive line, and you drop a Michael Jackson reference right in the middle of it.
Hey, can I put both of y'all in a really, really good mood real quick? So Kay has been working hard behind me, really important stuff. And we got NASCAR driver Olin Buchanan, even though that's like a drift car next to him.
That's not a long picture. That picture's long ago, but yeah.
We couldn't get the TexAgs logo on there, but you get the picture. Nice. And then she got a little creative and made this gym. That's just...
Is that a onesie?
Yeah, it's a onesie.
No,
it's a thing of beauty.
It's got pants on it.
It has...
It's not the best. She used AI for that. So
okay. I do look a little thin there, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's a good look. We're working on one for Callie right now.
Is orange juice involved?
Indeed.
But hey, listen, Nick, I don't doubt that she spilt the orange juice. I told her that. The story that she's completely fabricated out of thin air, that's what I have big question marks about.
I don't think I could have made that up.
You dropped the orange juice is what happened.
I wasn't trying to get orange juice. I don't drink orange juice.
Yeah, but you were like moving the water and it hit the orange juice and the orange juice fell out of the refrigerator and hit the ground and cracked that way.
No, I can show you exactly.
You did not hit an orange juice with a water bottle and it broke.
I haven't heard this much discussion about OJ since the white Bronco.
You got a good way of kind of getting the action back turned all in today. Or just in your favor. All right. Where you want to start? You going to start playoffs, Aggie basketball?
Aggie basketball.
All right, let's do that.
Man, of course, they were supposed to work over Houston Christian, and they did. And kid from your neck of the woods, Hayden Hefner, had a big game.
Yeah, 19. And they did it without Wade. Scored 77 without Wade.
Yeah.
And I know the competition's not great, but that is a really good sign to see the ball get spread around. And somebody just, whether it's Hef or Manny or Zert Phelps, somebody being able to step up in Wade's absence is good to see.
How about 10 wins before Christmas?
When's the last time that happened?
I don't know, but and then when you figure out, you figure in how challenging the schedule was.
What was the line on that game? It was like 31.5, and A&M won by 32. Vegas is pretty good at this stuff.
If I was a coach, okay, I would always know what the line is. And if I do everything in my power to make sure my team covered it.
There's a lot of conversations about that.
You know why I would do that? Because as long as my fan base is winning money, they're probably having extra money to contribute to my
There's
NIL.
been a lot of conversation about head coaches, I don't know about in basketball, but in football, knowing what his big donors have bet, and especially if they've bet in overs or they've bet in covers for their team.
Yeah. Like Missouri kicking a field goal with just to make sure they can.
There's a lot
I'm
of
not
discussion.
sure saying drink what's new, but he sure seemed like it.
Is there anything wrong with that? Obviously not legally, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm okay with it. If you've incentivized all this money and all this stuff and it being okay.
I'm just saying if I'm a coach and they're paying me, hey, you don't even have to pay me the $10 million. You're paying me $5 million because I'm benevolent that way. I would just take $5 million.
The best thing, one of the best things
I want to help.
One of the best things that could ever happen to A&M athletics would be Olin Buchanan winning the lottery. You said that.
True. Yeah. Because I'm gonna tamper my ass off if I ever get, Anthony Hill's gonna be back here.
Well,
I'm going to say I know Jimbo and his recruiting staff screwed it up, but I got $2 million to say I'm sorry.
Bring you back one final season.
Yes. So if I was the coach and I would make sure I knew the line, and if I had a chance to make sure my team covered it or to do everything I can, because I know my fan base is betting on me, and I want them to get rich too.
6 wins on the bounce for Aggie basketball. They got Abilene Christian coming to Reed Arena on Saturday the 28th.
I wonder if they're still good. I don't know much about them.
But I looked up last night.
Bad.
They're not great.
Wasn't it about 3 or 4 years ago they beat Texas in the NCAA tournament?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they have that squad again. Just looking at the early season results. But what were you able to? I didn't listen to the postgame. What did Buzz say about Wade?
He said that he was out. I said, yeah, and that really didn't say a lot. In fact, I even said, should we take this? Now, was he out? Will he be out extended? He said, we don't know. Okay, so we don't know if it was just a one day thing, maybe resting, maybe he's got a hangnail, we're going to rest him, or if it's something more serious. He didn't come across like it was that serious. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play against Abilene Christian, but he's going to be out there against Texas.
That's what I'm saying. It was if you had to have Wade Taylor get injured, that was probably a pretty good time to have it.
And Anderson Garcia only played 7 minutes in that game.
Was there something health-wise, or was it just?
Well, he only played 7, maybe, but they're probably saying, obviously it couldn't have been too bad.
This is a good time. Again, this is a good time to do player maintenance, right?
Yes.
Like, if you need to sit guys, sit them. You have a 14-day break between Houston Christian and Texas, and you had, a 20-day break between Purdue and Texas. So this is
break. They actually played,
but like what I'm saying is where you've got to ramp it up and go. Yes. So this is a good time of the year for all that stuff to be happening. I don't foresee this team because of what the league is. I don't know. When you start Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Kentucky, you got to have Wade Taylor fired at 100% to manage those waters.
Yeah. Because what would you think is hey, this team could go 4-0. They won't, I don't think, but they could. They're good. But what's the game that's you're most likely to win and all that?
Texas.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't know, Oklahoma at this point, like I was calling them, are they fraudulent? But they just keep winning back.
And you got to go up there.
I know. And they haven't been up there since how long?
I don't know.
Is that a difficult arena? I know Gallagher-Iba in the old Big 12 days was tough to play.
Well, that's Oklahoma State, yeah. They've upgraded, haven't they? Or did they build a new one? I've been to Lloyd Noble.
Is it the same?
That's where they're
still Lloyd Noble.
It's still at Lloyd Noble. They may have upgraded.
Is that the guy from Yellowstone? Lloyd.
Game of Thrones.
Was it Lloyd Noble?
Game of Thrones.
Lloyd?
Yeah, or Narcos. I'm
Lloyd's
just making it up.
The cowboy.
Your pop culture references are they're on another level today. What'd you do? Would you watch a bunch of Netflix over the weekend? What happened?
I do that quite often, but no. I thought everybody knew about Michael Jackson's head catching on fire, and you said these guys were playing with their head catching on fire.
All right, back-to-back segments.
Yellowstone.
Festivus.
Lloyd.
Festivus. Back-to-back segments.
Entourage. Lloyd.
We're ending talking about Michael Jackson's head catching on fire. What a show, Nick.
No
We're
promises.
off to a fast start here on a Monday morning. We come back more with OB. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. If we've said it once, we've said it a million times. The stuff that's said in commercial breaks at this place, it should be aired. What you got, Nick?
Yeah, so we've obtained security footage of the incident that occurred upstairs with Callie Gardner, and it's as bad as we thought. She just
poured it out.
Poured it out.
I knew
Unbelievable, Callie.
It's literally not true.
That looks like you, and you've got orange juice in your hand.
What's wrong with her arms? My goodness.
It's holiday season, Nick.
Yeah, this show has been wacky. So.
How did y'all do that?
Orange, you glad we have sports to talk about?
Not much. December 23rd, Christmas coming right around the corner, and Callie's being the Grinch. Telling lies.
Kay Naegeli, do your job.
Yeah, Kay Naegeli, do your job. I think we need a Kay Naegeli.
You know what's the most impressive thing about Kay Naegeli? Her brother.
Okay, I didn't know where you were going. I have some answers to that question.
You know, he's a rich guy from just fishing.
He's a rich fisherman.
Yeah, just from fishing and telling people how to fish made him rich.
Who's in the Bible that was the fisherman?
Well, a bunch of people. Peter?
Peter threw the net on the other side of the boat.
Bunch of fish.
Yeah, that might be what Fisherman Naegeli is. I think the most impressive thing about Kay Naegeli is her dad.
Her dad?
Steve Naegeli, legend.
Yeah, I like Steve Naegeli.
Apple don't fall far from the tree in some instances with Steve Naegeli.
I actually covered football and baseball games for the Tyler Morning Telegraph White House with Steve Naegeli playing receiver and pitcher.
Wow. So Kay's probably the least athletic person in her family, is what I'm hearing.
Probably the least athletic person I know.
Whoa! What'd you think of the playoff games, OB?
I thought they were boring.
I know,
but I'm glad they had. I'm so glad they had. Wait, well, you know what? SMU had a chance, and their quarterback just lost his mind.
I know. Kevin Jennings did not play well, but he threw the fourth down play early, and he threw it behind him, but the kid could still make the catch. It wouldn't have been an easy catch.
Yeah, but you know what? He could have run easily for the first down.
He didn't play well. That killed him on the road.
That's an understatement.
Now, I will say this. Everybody thought that because the games were boring and, Indiana losing by 10 to Notre Dame, that's worse. That game was worse than what the final score depicted. That scoreline really flatters.
You could probably say the same thing for Texas and Clemson.
Yeah, both those scorelines really flatter the loser there, I think. But it's too early for everybody to be sitting up here and saying, y'all wanted 12, this is what you get. This is 1 year. This is 1 year. And everybody said, and I'll go back to a high school football reference, they expanded, playoffs from 1 to 2, and then they went to 3, and now it's at 4. And
4 teams getting the playoffs.
4 teams from every district. But this year there was two or three seeds or below that went all the way to a quarterfinal. So it is possible. I just don't think that you can make an overarching definitive statement about the playoffs should have been cut at 8. 12's too many because of 1 year's worth of games. The sample size is not big enough.
Look, they're going to eventually go to 16. Sports writers, and I'm one of them, just like there's certain words I don't know if I can say in it. They like to complain.
Okay.
They just like to find a reason to complain. Because for all year they said, it's going to ruin the regular season. It made the regular season better. Sports writers typically, especially national ones, they don't know what they're talking about. Oh, college football's better when Notre Dame's good. Well, when they weren't good, college football was setting all kinds of records and people were watching, so why did it have to be better than Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Because you like Notre Dame. I heard some woman, reporter, I can't remember which one it was, saying the national championship game should always be played in the Rose Bowl. Why? Because you like going there? Maybe nobody else wants to have to go to California all the time and pay exorbitant prices and deal with all that traffic and all the other craziness.
It's not the playoff that has ruined college football. At least it's not even the expanded playoff. At least it's not in the top 10 things for me. With what's happening with player movement, and what NIL has ballooned into, that is, if you want to look at the crux of what is going to tear down college football, that's what's doing it.
And that's the NCAA.
And Auburn got another kid this morning, Eric Singleton, out of the transfer portal. The top
Georgia Tech?
Yeah, the top rated wide receiver in the transfer portal. Auburn is throwing around massive amounts of money, which you can do now. I'm not saying that's wrong. They're throwing around massive amounts of money. Do you know why? Because as much money is being spent on roster management, player retention, player acquisition, that's still cheaper than buying out Hugh Freeze because he stinks.
Yeah, I think we can understand that concept.
So they're going all in because they have to. It's going to save them money by spending all this money.
Well, they got good receivers now.
They do.
And I think I don't know that you can be a championship caliber team if you don't have really good receivers.
I think it starts still offensive line and quarterback.
Well, yeah, that's where it starts. But I mean, you can go down and
can I tell you this?
Well, Georgia was a machine with Brock Bowers and McConkey. When those two guys got hurt and didn't play, they lost.
There's a notion out there that you can just go buy roster and win now in college football, right?
Yeah, it comes out of Oxford, Mississippi.
Right. That's a hypothesis, it's a notion. Where's the evidence that that's going to work?
Well, they're trying to see if it works in Columbus, Ohio, because they went crazy and bought a whole bunch of players last year.
They bought Travion Henderson.
And Oregon.
And Quinshon Judkins.
And they already had Travion Henderson.
Right. Quinshon Judkins, Will Howard,
Caleb Downs.
What I'm saying is I still think that and we talked about it, by the way, our in-home visit. Jason and I sat down last night, talked for like 25, 30 minutes about what A&M's done in the transfer portal. And just about, I don't think yet that you can say, all right, season's over, go buy whatever you want and bring in the best players possible and it's going to work. That's a foolproof method. It's not. You still have to develop players.
Yeah, you do.
Absolutely. Look, and this is going to be a bad example for a lot of Aggies. Look at Texas. Their starting offensive line, all 5 of those kids, homegrown. Quinn Ewers spent 1 semester at Ohio State, and then he came back. So I would count Quinn as a homegrown, like he's developed. You've got to, Gunnar Helm, their tight end who's been fantastic, has been developed. You've got to get guys in and develop them.
And you supplement with the portal.
You can't just go crazy. Mike Elko had to bring in 22 players last offseason. This year, they're going to probably be in that 10 to 15 range.
More quality than quantity.
Right. There are situations where you have to go out and just take a massive amount of transfers. I've got questions about why that is happening at LSU right now. Why in year, 5?
It'll be year 4.
Year 4 under Brian Kelly? Are you having to go make so many roster moves? Did you do a bad job of evaluating your high school players? Have you done a bad job of developing your high school players? I don't know. But I don't think you should get to a point whenever you are established as a coaching staff where you're going to have 20 guys out of the portal or upwards of 20 guys. So we'll see.
Yeah,
you have to develop them, man. Like I love the fact that A&M said, hey, we feel good about our offensive line, what we got coming back. And we love the depth that we've developed and signed out of the high school ranks where we don't have to go pay an exorbitant amount of money for Isaiah World from Nevada who goes to Oregon. They brought in Ethan Onyeonwa from Rice, an offensive lineman. I don't think they're going to make a huge push for that. They like what they've got, and they like the development of their players. I just think that gets overshadowed. Nobody wants to have, OB, a nuanced discussion about what's happening in the portal. The easy thing for everybody to say is throw money at it. Just go pay for the best player. I don't think it's that cut and dry. It's not that black and white.
So you're saying that if I do win the lottery, I don't need to tamper?
No, it's good to have the money available to get what you need. And now because of the revenue share, or at least what we think is going to come from the House, a lot of teams now have money where they didn't before. So just an example, Kansas will have money to spend. If Kansas needs a position, they've got money to go out and overspend at a position. So now you throw a team like Kansas or Vanderbilt, all these teams that are going to now be in the market to be able to spend on certain positions, they won't have the overall numbers that A&M, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee, LSU have, but Auburn. But they will be able to overspend at a couple of positions. So guess what that's going to do? It's going to keep driving the price up. There's a bubble on this thing that's got to burst. I don't know how or when it does. But I have long said that this NIL structure and the way it's going is a house of cards. It's going to topple at some point. I don't know who's going to be the person that tries to drag the water bottle out and hits it and knocks it all over.
Like orange juice.
Like orange juice. All right, that was my long diatribe rant. But to just say it all comes down to the money. You got to have the money. You got to spend it, and that will change your roster. It's more nuanced than that. You have to have the money. You have to spend it wisely. But you can't just go out and buy players willy-nilly. You still got to have good high school scouting evaluations, and you got to develop your players.
So if I tell Elko I got $5 million for him, you think he's going to take it?
You're not hearing that. So you're only hearing the money side like everybody else.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, obviously, I just said you want to take the money. You want to have the money on hand to do what you want.
Take the money and run.
All right. Olin's killing my trains of thoughts with more pop culture stuff.
Next one is go to a break.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I know. You're doing a good job of it. When we come back, we'll close the Go Hour. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Bring me back. All right, around Aggieland, the end of the 8 o'clock hour. Ryan Brauninger, the host here at TexAgs Live. David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studios. Around Aggieland, presented by Norman G. State Bank. Rock solid banking. Visit normangstatebank.com. Kay Naegeli.
Taking it away. All right, let's get going. We all know what's happened in football. They arrived in the Sin City this was it yesterday? I believe.
Yesterday.
They will play on Friday. Reminder, that is a 9:30 p.m. kick. Gonna be a late one, but we will enjoy it. On the football front as well, Cleveland Brown defensive end Myles Garrett secured his 100th sack on Sunday afternoon, a week before his 29th birthday. He is the first player to reach 100 sacks in a career before turning 29 years old. What an accomplishment for him. Moving over to the basketball front, Buzz Williams and number 12 Texas A&M post a 32-point victory over Houston Christian. Next up, they will have Abilene Christian. That is on Saturday, December 28th. That is a 3 p.m. game on SEC Network. Also on the basketball front, Alex Caruso signed a 4-year, $81 million contract extension with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
A lot of money.
That is a lot of money. Another great accomplishment for another Aggie. And then women's basketball, Joni Taylor's Aggies will begin SEC play on January 2nd. That is against undefeated number 18 Tennessee. They are 9-0. That will be a hard one on January 2nd. So.
Merry Christmas, Kay. On the other side of the break, Tom Hart, great friend of the program, joins TexAgs Live. Welcome back to TexAgs Live. Ryan Brauninger in the host chair, and I'm inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Let's go out to the Boss Firearms Hotline. Talk to a great friend of the program, and if I know this guy, I know he's as jolly as the day is long during the holiday season. Tom Hart of the SEC Network joins us today. Tommy, Merry Christmas, my man. I appreciate your time. Do we have Tom? Is Tom maybe muted? Okay, well, we are going to effort Tom Hart. I love that intro. Don't forget, if you want to interact with the show, 979-693-1150. Put Callie Gardner to work in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We're going to need some help to get through this 9 o'clock hour until we get to Billy. He'll join us during the 10 o'clock hour. Jason Howell going to do a spot. He is on his way to and from DFW Airport to pick up his daughter. She returns for the holidays, so Howell is going to make some time for us to jump on, talk a little bit of this recruiting stuff, talk a little transfer portal. Nick, can you just keep me up to date? All right, we got Tom back. Tom Hart, you there? We're working through it. Tom Hart.
Hey, here we go.
There's Tommy.
Here we go.
Wait, were you busy stuffing your face with a Culver's burger this morning?
Nothing but the best for me, pal. Merry Christmas. I love this time of year. I do love it, man, because, listen, if your team's playing, great, good for you. You get to watch your team. But even if your team's not playing, you're out of school, you got a few days off work. You know, you can walk the dog, come back, watch the bowl games, get fired up. I think it's great. I think it's great.
What does Christmas look like in the Hart house in terms of fare? What do y'all eat?
You know, that is a hot topic right now because we're not having anyone from out of town. So it's just going to be my wife and my 3 kids, all 3 teenagers. So we're not necessarily beholden to Christmas traditions, right? I feel like I'm a traditional guy. I feel the responsibility, especially when you have company. Obviously, Thanksgiving's going to be, the turkey, and then you can vote on what sides generally. But some are locks. We'll do a big hunk of red meat on Christmas Eve, and then that'll help everybody sleep. We'll get up, we'll see what Santa brought. And Christmas Day, we're undecided yet. Like, we don't feel the responsibility to, break out the silverware and the nice glasses. We're just all going to, be a good family and hang out together and maybe go over to the neighbor's house, and that's about it.
So you'll have some time to turn on the TV and watch some sports. Where do you want to start with this, Tom? Olin and I discussed in the first hour about the commentary surrounding the playoff and the big uproar that 12 is too many. We told you 12 is too many. And I'm like, hey, tap the brakes there. There's not a big enough sample size yet to make any definitive statements on whether the number is right or wrong, whether it should expand or be cut down to 8. Where are you at on this whole thing in terms of just the look of it and the number of teams going forward?
Well, I'm more concerned with the commentary, quite frankly, because I agree with you. I thought there was a lot of negative commentary from leaders in the sport. You are 100% right, and it was all I could do to keep my thumbs from tweeting that out and stirring the pot. Sit back and relax. Like, not only are we first year, we're the first weekend into it. If the next round turns out to be awesome games, that is a very small price to pay to get us to that point. So I agree with you, and I think I'm not saying that you have to agree with everything that's going on, but give it a minute to marinate. Let's see what it looks like next year. Now, I am not above refining everything, and I think the refinement that needs to occur, and you have to think about how this process came together. There's a lot of bureaucracy in putting together a 12-team playoff. Remember, it was put off by a year because the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, remember them, decided that they wanted to have a scheduling alliance. We should have had this playoff last year. We didn't get it because of those fools. It gets pushed back a year. But you have to build in all of these rules to get people to agree to it. And one of the rules they built in was the top 4 conference champions, no matter where you are ranked, You're going to be one of the top 4 seeds. And that, I think, will prove to be the biggest mistake because it turns into an uneven bracket. And I don't think that's what we want. I know there are benefits to it in terms of, valuing the regular season and valuing the conference championship, but there's a way to do that where you're not just gifting somebody a seed that is way above their ceiling, because that's not fair to other teams in the bracket. It's not fair. I mean, it's not fair to Ohio State. What they get, like what Ohio State gets with the 8 seed, is the way it should play. That's great, but all they do is Oregon gets Ohio State, right? Mm-hmm. But Oregon looks across the country and they go, hold on, we're the best team in college football and certainly the best team in the Big Ten. And that team, Penn State, who's nowhere near us, they get Boise State. And they get a walkover of SMU in a home game and whatever it was, $40-50 million in local economic impact. And then they get Boise. And we got to face Ohio State again, who we barely beat. If it was seeded properly, yeah, one still gets 8. But the 6-3 game looks different.
Yeah.
The 4-5 matchup looks different if it was properly seeded.
You bring up a good point, Tom. And we also need to look at now, me being a baseball guy, and you know this, like not every conference schedule, now that these conferences have ballooned into these behemoths, not every conference schedule is going to be made even. And so I even think that should play more of how does this look going forward? We need to start weighing these conference schedules as well as seeding them the best top, I think it's going to end up getting to 16. Maybe we just seed 1 to 16. And maybe you can even use the BCS computer models to do that, to take away the human element, because they're going to factor in strength of schedule. But going back to the games, Tom, was there anything that surprised you? I thought Tennessee not being competitive was surprising to me.
I agree. They were the hot pick to spring the upset. But to me, most of that, to be realistic, most of that talk was really about Ohio State and less about Tennessee. And what we last saw from them in the Michigan game, their lack of ability to score, as anemic as their offense looked. Tennessee was a much different team at home than they were on the road this year. The 2 losses came on the road. Obviously, everybody loses to Georgia, but they lost at Arkansas, right? Mm-hmm. They one of the best games they played this year in terms of like entertainment was when they went to Oklahoma and they won that one by 10, and that was close. And Oklahoma, as we know, is not a good team. And by the way, that speaks to, okay, can we please get the next round on campus sites? Like, home field advantage is so real in college football. It's what all of us love about college football. It's the pageantry, it's the nostalgia, all of that. And now we have this opportunity in a world where we need as much, we meaning the sport and specifically athletic departments, need as much revenue as possible. Why are we sourcing out our revenue to bowl games, to major metropolitan cities? Like, you should have that opportunity to make another $50 million of economic impact for your local community. Mm-hmm. And we've never had home football games the week between Christmas and New Year's. People are going to show up. Like, if they're going to get on a plane and fly to Pasadena, guess what? They're going to come to your stadium for a home game. Yeah, and you're also really stretching out a lot of those fans that if those teams continue to win, boy, you talk about fan expenditure to just go follow your team on the way to the national championship. That's a lot of money in this time of year where people are already spending a lot of money. That's a great point, Tom. And I didn't think about the impact that it could have on the local economy and just your average everyday fan who, if you're in the state of Texas, how much easier is it for you to drive from Houston, Dallas, San Antonio to College Station or Austin than it is to get on a plane and go to Pasadena or Miami and then have to pick up and do it again the following week? That's a great point, man. And the follow the money stuff has never been more prevalent in college football. And I want to get your take on what's happening. I don't know how much you've been following this transfer portal stuff. I'm just going to tell you, Tommy, it is off the rails. And just your thoughts on what you've been able to pick up, kind of looking at it from a bird's eye view. Well, I want to rewind just 1 second because there's a point I wanted to make about
Sure.
You know, a 12-team playoff versus a 14. I think you have to ask yourself, and put yourself in Greg Sankey's shoes or Tony Petitti's shoes. We don't have a commissioner of college football. We need one, but we don't have one. So put yourself in their shoes. Well, actually, don't put yourself in their shoes. Pretend like you're the president of college football. You want what's best for the entire sport, not just for one league. People are going to complain about, you know, these lower seeds and their performance, whether it was SMU or, I mean, you could even complain about Tennessee if you want, but SMU and Clemson, and we'll see how Boise does. Indiana, obviously. What is best for the health of the sport? Was it at its best when we had a 14 playoff and there was no parity and we kept seeing the same Alabamas, Clemson's, Ohio State's year after year? Or is it better than to have access? And when I say access, I don't mean just like, the group of five gets a chance, like Boise gets a chance. I mean, like in Indiana. When would Indiana ever be part of a 14 playoff? Never. You know, SMU, never. So to keep those fan bases engaged, it's the beauty of the NFL. The beauty of the NFL, Chiefs notwithstanding, is the parity of the league year after year. And they build that parity not just through the draft. That's obviously part of it, different from college football, but through scheduling. And they do it purposefully. So then the Titans can be terrible for 2 years. And then they could be in the mix to win their division. And there is no consternation about, is the Central as good as the East is good? No, who cares? All you have to do is win your division. Falcons just win your division and you're in. And so those fan bases stay engaged year after year. Even when you have a dump of a year, you know, unless you're the Jets and you never seem to get better, you know that we're going to get a good draft pick and our schedule's going to get easier. And all we have to do is win X number of games against our division opponents, and then we got a shot. And I think the access, it sounds egalitarian. I don't mean to come off like that, but I think it's important to grow the whole sport. It is as strong as it can be in our neck of the woods, right?
Yeah.
And in pockets, in Detroit, in Columbus, even in Western Pennsylvania. But there's a lot of places where it's not as popular as it could be. And we need to keep all of those fans engaged and everybody watching through the end. And you do that by offering access and a path.
And you've expanded the horizons of hope, right? More fan bases have hope for longer. You're right. It keeps more people engaged. And that's actually a very good segue to this transfer portal stuff, Tom, is that the transfer portal has allowed the expansion of hope. So if you're Auburn, who's coming off back-to-back poor seasons under Hugh Freeze, it might be cheaper to go and completely rework your roster through the transfer portal than it is to get rid of Hugh Freeze, pay the buyout, and hire a new coaching staff. And when you're doing this and when you're going out and you're being so aggressive in the transfer portal, you've given hope back to your fan base. And a hopeful fan base is an engaged fan base, and they're willing to spend the money. All of this kind of ties into what you said, Tom, is just getting everybody engaged for longer. So in that element, this transfer portal is successful. On the flip side of it, these coaches that are having to navigate it, it is a complete and total circus.
Yes, it is. I don't have much sympathy for the coaches, and here's why. And I just did a straw poll. During last basketball season, shoot around, casual conversations with coaches. I asked the question to most of them. I said, because coaches love to complain. Like they love to compete and they love to complain. Any slight that they could perceive was against them or their program, they're going to hammer that thing. So the complaint annually or regularly was, this roster management is impossible. And I get how hard it is, and I don't think it's good for fans that rosters turn over as often as they do. That being the case, I said, okay, coach, I'll give you a choice, hypothetically. You can have roster stability similar to what it ever was, right? I guarantee your roster will stay in place with very few exceptions. However, you're going to have to give up 30% of your coaching staff salary. And to a man, every one of them said, I think we can do instability. I think we can handle that. That's a small price, 30%. But now look at it. Now look what's happening with the House case. And and where we're going to end up. We're going to end up at revenue sharing. We're basically already there, and so you've surrendered that revenue, hopefully for stability, but that won't come until something is collectively bargained.
Yep.
It drives guys crazy, and it's different for every sport. Obviously, the same foundation, but the basketball guys now are like, listen, we're not running things the same way. We're not worried about player development. We're not we want to get better from October to March, sure. But we don't have time to bring a freshman in to build him up to be a starter as a junior. He's like, we're all junior college programs. We're going to turn over every year. But I do, to your original point, and I think Missouri is a great example of this. Missouri was a team in years past that would have a hard time competing in the SEC year in and year out. But Eli Drinkwitz mined the right people to invest in his program as the only major college in that state. And they now they don't have Alabama's payroll, but they now have the ability to go get guys. They just got the Penn State transfer quarterback. They invested in Luther Burden. If you want to win and you get the right people invested in your program, no matter the size of your program, SMU is a great example, right? Indiana's a great example, then you can build it. If you don't care and you don't want to be invested, or you just don't have the momentum to bring that money in, then it's going to be a lot harder for you, because we're going to be talking about $20 million payrolls. But the reality is, just look at what BYU did signing the number one recruit in next year's basketball class. You're going to go above and beyond what that $20 to $21 million is
for sure.
to build into an elite program.
You've been the segue king, Tom, so let's talk real quickly, last thing before I get you out of here. The SEC basketball, what it looks like we're getting ready to head into conference play. This thing looks like, again, to me, Tom, this looks like an SEC baseball schedule with the depth of the league this year.
Yeah, it's incredible, and enough teams have put enough in the bank that they're going to be sitting in a really good spot, but it is going to be a dogfight each and every game. And by the way, what is that? So what does that mean to the average fan? Well, it means just about every SEC game, a home game, if you're not a top 10 opponent, you're going to have a top 10 opponent in your building. You're going to have the opportunity for a huge win. You're going to have these great environments. It's going to be a big stage every night you play a conference game, just about. And I don't see anybody running away from this. I mean, there are tiers within the league right now, and certainly, Auburn and Tennessee are probably the leaders of one tier, and then there's a great chunk of teams in the next tier, and the middle tier can win any game. I mean, LSU's gotten off to a great start. They're the second lowest rated team in the net in the SEC. They already have 10 wins and 2 losses. So I think it's going to battle whoever earns the regular season championship is going to absolutely earn it. But it's also not going to be limiting in terms of, you could finish 8th in the league this year and be a Final Four team. I firmly believe that. Other leagues are down. The ACC is down. The Big Ten has good depth, but not as great high-end elite teams. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Your comp to baseball is perfect, because this is exactly what SEC baseball has been forever. And what I always say during baseball season, I think also applies to this basketball season. It's not going to be about who you play. It's when you play them, because there will be ups and downs. There will be injuries. There will be dips even from great teams. So do you catch Auburn while Jani Broome is injured, or when he's healthy, for example, will be one big thing. Like you get to play LSU, fine, but can you skip Paul Skeens? That's going to be different for you, and you get to then bag a great win against an elite program.
Tommy, really appreciate your time, dude. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Hopefully we'll see you down here in a few weeks for at Reed Arena for Aggie basketball.
Yeah, I'll be there for the Texas game.
Perfect. We'll see you in a
Why not? Let's get it going in style.
All right, buddy. Be good, man. Merry Christmas.
All right, Bronny. Merry Christmas.
All right, that's a great friend of the program, SEC Network, Tom Hart. We come back. Jason Howell joins us on the phone line. We'll talk a little Aggie recruiting and transfer portal. as we roll right along on a Monday morning on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, bottom of the 9 o'clock hour. Got a segment coming up here with TexAgs recruiting analyst, my coworker, good buddy. Spent a lot of time with him in AT&T Stadium over the last couple of days. Jason Howell joins us on the Boss Firearms Hotline inside. I'm inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. He is somewhere in the Metroplex in his car to and from the airport, as a lot of people are right now. Jason, appreciate you jumping on, dude.
Always. Yeah, we're on Mockingbird, about to get on 35, and yeah, man, making our way through DFW.
All right. Well, so we'll start with a commitment. 2026 tight end Caleb Tafua kind of caught us off guard, and the more you talk to people, kind of caught a lot of people off guard that he chose the Aggies. A&M was in his top 4, a 6'4", 225-ish pound tight end out of Lakewood High School in Lakewood, California. I had to look up where that was. It's between Los Angeles and Long Beach, so Southern California kid. The Aggies continue their run out west of really plucking top players from the state when you look at what A&M was able to do in this recent 2025 recruiting class. But Jason, when this came across our desk in Arlington, you started to do some research and do some homework. This kid's been hugely productive.
Yeah, he was the leading receiver out there at Lakewood. I want to say he had about 800 receiving yards and a big target in the red zone, especially. But he can break loose a little bit and give you a dynamic presence down the field in the passing game. And that size. He's got some real length there, and Colin Klein's going to have a good time handling. Getting him in the mix.
Yeah, and I love you mentioned his production and high school kids that play tight end. I feel like a lot of it is a kind of a projection because it's not a spot in high school football that you see overly utilized, right? Like there's some guys that are super athletic, they're big bodied, and maybe they're more adept at catching passes than they are putting their hand in the ground and run blocking. This kid has been hugely productive as a receiver and as a blocker. Like he's got a lot of obviously physical tools, but then it shows up on Friday night. That's one of my favorite things is the numbers he's put up.
Yeah. And like you said, that catch radius, he's physical and the ball's in the air. He does a good job of positioning himself. And that's the reason why, this is a guy who he chose A&M over Cal, USC and Washington out there. You had offers from Oregon on the West Coast and as well as all across the country. He's regarded as one of the top tight ends in the class, and that gives A&M 2 of them, which, man, you got to love what they're putting together out there and continuing to tap into that California pipeline.
Yeah, so you have a commitment from Southern California at tight end. Then you have another tight end committed from Fairburn, Georgia, Xavier Tiller. The Aggies are spanning coast to coast so far in the class of 2026, Jason, but we do anticipate those recruiting efforts getting more centralized and closer to home at the turn of the new year, right?
Yeah. They're not forgetting where home base is. Texas is always going to be home. There's always going to be a lot of homegrown talent that A&M's targeting, and I expect them to be very much in the mix for a lot of the top prospects in the state. They've laid a lot of groundwork. They had several home games this fall, a lot of big-time atmosphere. So you can look for a lot of those guys to be back on campus as early as January for Junior Day, and you start seeing those guys making more visits in the spring, and A&M really doing some heavy lifting more in state.
Hey, Jason, I got to get back on the clock. Can you join me for another segment on the other side of a commercial break?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be right back more with Jason Howell. We're not going to get to do a recruiting country this week because of Christmas, so we're going to do it sort of today, like an impromptu one today. So Jason will join us on the other side of the break. We'll get into A&M's transfer portal efforts, maybe also talk a little bit of what we saw at the Texas High School Football State Championships over the weekend in Arlington. A lot more to get to when we come back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
All right, back in the Rollo Insurance Studios, I'm Ryan Brauninger, the B-team version of TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Back out to the Boss Firearms Hotline to continue our conversations with Jason Howell. I just returned from Arlington. Jason kind of lives in the area, but Jason and I spent a lot of time at AT&T Stadium. Wanted to hit on the Texas High School Football State Championships, Jason. Olin asked me in the first hour who the best player I saw was. It was hard for me to narrow that down to one. But I did have my most impressive team was the Columbus Cardinals. What a night for the Schobel family there as they run off and leave. I can't remember who Malakoff in the 3A Division I state championship. And then the best game, I think that one's pretty easy. I think that was Richmond Randall against South Oak Cliff. But maybe some standouts for you, individual players or some overarching themes.
Yeah, you got to throw Adam Schobel in there for Columbus. He was phenomenal. Bo Bentley, sorry. He for Salina, he was near perfect.
Yep.
And their runaway win. And but I think Chase Sims was phenomenal from just a pure defensive line standpoint. He was the most dominant defensive lineman we saw all weekend, in my mind, just all over the field, instantly getting penetration and pushing the line scrimmage back, and just being a disruptive figure all over the field. I could go on, but you got to throw Quentin Gibson in there, and that North Crowley speed just overall. My goodness. That was just a different level. I know you didn't get to see that one, but man, it was. It looked like Westlake was in slow motion, and it looked like North Crowley was in fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all go from North Crowley from the very beginning. So it was just there's a lot. That's a hard one to nail down to one particular guy because there were so many impressive performances.
Miles Tedecki for Austin Vandergrift, their quarterback, was sensational as well. I think he was 8 for 8, 215 yards and 2 touchdowns at halftime in their win over South Lake Carroll in the 6A Division II game. But, Jason, you brought up Chase Sims. Got to talk about the defensive line. A&M adds Deion Hayes from the transfer portal from Colorado. And what I wrote on the thread, and I discussed it in the first hour, was, look, A&M's going to go make more additions across the defensive line. But when you start with Deion Hayes, a highly productive player, an old guy that comes to A&M after a really, really quality 2023 season at Pitt. He was injured early last year for Colorado, but the Aggies get the ball rolling on the defensive line with Deion Hayes.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I love the experience he brings to the table. Multiple years of, on the P4 level, and he's really picked it up. He's always been a guy, too, that's, I think from his redshirt freshman year in 21, he's been a highly productive guy from a tackle for loss standpoint. And then in 23, you saw his tackle numbers overall just pick. And last year, he was on track for another phenomenal season before he got hurt. When he's healthy, he's a highly productive, instant impact kind of guy that's going to find a way into your rotation and be a factor. So I love the addition. A&M was on him pretty quickly after he put his name in the portal and got him on campus and got that one locked up. And that was I think not enough has been made about that one from the, I guess the media fan perspective out there because it happened so quickly. And that's going to be one we look back on and say, wow, okay, yeah, this guy turned out to be a major plus.
Yeah, and another guy that A&M's really excited about that did excite the fan base was Mario Craver, committed to the Aggies on December 17th.
Yeah.
Averaged 21 yards a reception as a freshman for Mississippi State. Jason, I don't think that you've been on radio here or in YouTube and on TexAgs Live to kind of discuss your thoughts on Mario Craver, a receiver with 3 years of eligibility remaining, much like Micah Hudson.
Yeah, he just brings that extra twitch that you always need, especially in the SEC. He has SEC experience. You've seen it on tape. I want to say 21 yards of reception last year. I mean, that doesn't happen unless you have a tremendous amount of speed and quickness. And what he does with the ball, blowing the top off of defense, and after the catch, what he's able to do. I mean, that's always an asset, and just another upgrade for the receiving corps out there.
Yeah, and then Nate Burkature, the tight end from Nebraska, another addition at a position of need, and it won't be kind of an unheralded addition to the roster, much like Mike O'Reilly was from Auburn. But Colin Klein and the Aggie offensive coaching staff identified a need position that, due to losing Trey Watson and Shane Calhoun to graduation, the Aggies had to restockpile that tight end spot from a blocking perspective, and they thought that they struggled at times this year, so they wanted to make sure they went and got big physical bodies that could come in and impact how they ran the football.
Yeah, and honestly, I think those guys, Micah and Nate, they've got a chance to be probably a better asset in the blocking department from what A&M had last year, and that's always something, when you look back at those short yardage situations last year, late in the season, you got to have those guys to help out, whether it's chipping or taking on a defensive end, and in the SEC, it takes a different breed. So those guys bring that, that ability as blockers. But I love what Bo Coach has done as developing as a receiver. You've seen him kind of that's been something that hasn't always been a major plus for his game, but he's really worked on it and has become more of a target down the stretch for Nebraska. And I think I was a guy Nebraska really wanted to see back in the fold out there at Lincoln, and for A&M to get him to head on down south, I think it says a lot about what Coach Klein and them are doing out there and what their vision is for that offense.
Not much time left. Well, actually, we are in a dead period for the transfer portal. So there's a second window to this winter transfer portal window upcoming. Jason, just kind of set the scene for what A&M fans can expect in terms of numbers remaining that they want to add here in this January transfer window coming up.
Well, you only have about 5 spots available by the current numbers, but that stuff's always changing. But I look for a couple of receivers, 1 or 2 receivers, to bring that total number to around 3 to 4. And you're looking for a few more additions on the defensive line, and then maybe a best available type, somebody that can just overall upgrade your roster. So that's what I'm looking for. And, a dead period doesn't mean a player can't commit or make a decision. So stay tuned to TexAgs. You never know what can happen. And with the transfer portal, the window closes on the 28th to go in. But those guys who are playing in bowl games, those guys that are in the playoffs, they have a 5-day window after the last day of their season where they can jump in there. So just because it may be after the 28th doesn't mean that new guys can't find their way into the portal. And when you're talking about bowl teams and playoff teams, we're talking about some pretty good players that could potentially be in the mix.
Yeah, and I'm hoping for our sake, Jason, we get a couple of days where it's slow, maybe even leading into this bowl game, where we get to kind of take a deep breath before we reset for our coverage after the new year. But I appreciate you hopping on with me, buddy. Merry Christmas. Be safe on the roads, and we'll be talking soon.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas to you and yours.
All right, that's TexAgs recruiting analyst Jason Howell. When we come back, got an open segment. We'll get to some of your text. I don't know where Callie's had an interesting day, Nick. So I don't know where Callie went.
She's back here.
Okay.
She's back here helping us.
Okay,
She's
so
working. She's not spilling more orange juice.
Good. So she'll be here to read some text messages. I know we had a few come in throughout the duration of the show, and then we welcome in Billy Liucci at the 10 o'clock hour to close us out. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
Everyone, David Nuno here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season.
All right, closing out the 9 o'clock hour on a Monday morning, getting you ready for your Christmas holiday. Thanks for joining us on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. I'm Ryan Brauninger in the host chair today inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. We're going to go over to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center.
Hey, before you do that, let's give away some pizza. Let's do that.
We're doing that now?
We're doing it now.
I thought we did that at the end of the show. Okay.
No. We don't do that at the end of the show anymore.
Okay,
we do it
979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice. Dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave, serving Aggieland and beyond since 1985. Your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni rolls with reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click doubledaves.com and your favorites are on the way. 979-693-1150. Call number 12. We'll hook you up with Double Dave's Pizza. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that. I'm still not used to this new schedule. That was always a 10:50 thing, but now the 10:50 segment is brought to you by Double Dave's. And with that, we will go over to a world-renowned pizza eater, Callie Gardner.
I don't know about that one.
You don't like pizza?
I like pizza.
You like
I feel like it as much as the next person.
Pizza with orange juice?
No.
Pizza
I don't
with
drink.
pineapple?
Yes.
You do like pizza with pineapple?
Yes.
I knew there was something wrong with you. All right, you got some text messages?
Yeah, we have a text from iDoc Mike, and he says, what do you think of the weekend that was a smorgasbord of football that was outside of the traditional high school Friday, college Saturday, and NFL Sunday?
It was a lot. And I can tell you this, when you cover high school football games, it's tough to do much of anything else because you're watching what's in front of you. We had the playoff games on the TVs above us in the press box. I had the Texans on my phone trying to watch the Texans play. But you can't intake all of it. It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was something they could do to keep it more traditional, but that's way above my pay grade. I'm sure there's money involved that drives such decisions, and they had to get the NFL teams on the schedule so that they could play on Christmas Day, and you don't want a 7-day week followed by a 4-day week, and then it's just I get the scheduling difficulties of it. The one thing that the added element to this was the playoff games. There's usually no college football on that Saturday. So if we're going to expand the playoff like they did and potentially even expand it further going forward, you're going to run into some of these scheduling things where you're just going to have to pick which football you watch. But it was a lot to try to digest inside the stadium, just having so many screens on different games. I remember trying to watch on Saturday. I was trying to watch the state championship games because it was two teams from Smithson Valley and then Austin Vandergrift were trying to pull big upsets for Region 4. That's a region that has kind of struggled to win state championships. So I was trying to keep an eye on those games and then watch the playoff games that were happening. It was just so hard that you'd hear everybody in the press box react to something and you're like, which game are they reacting to?
Yeah.
Right. So, it was a little much to digest, but overall, I mean, who's going to complain about a bunch of football?
Right.
Any more?
No. Yeah, we have a text that's from a 281 number, and it says, Ole Miss went crazy in the portal, and it helped them beat UGA, but not enough to win consistently. It makes you think it's a culture thing.
It might be, especially considering who their head coach is.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a Lane Kiffin fan. He couldn't win enough football games to make me a Lane Kiffin fan. I think there are certain things that are done off the field that will never allow me to be fans of certain individuals. So Lane Kiffin is one of those. And, you just hear enough stuff kind of through the grapevine about how he treats people and the stuff he's got going on. And, then he wants to be a big holier than thou guy in terms of what he's done to build his roster. And he trolls a little. I say holier than thou. He's actually the opposite. He's kind of rubbing people's nose in it.
Yeah.
In terms of how he's accommodating players. He's constantly trolling on Twitter. He was trying to troll the playoff committee. Joel Klatt had a wonderful tweet in response to maybe if you coached as good as you tweeted, your team would be in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't be losing to Kentucky at home and then accumulate 3 losses in this format and get in. Do I think Ole Miss would have been more competitive than Indiana, than SMU? Sure, but that's not the way it's laid out right now. And I do think when it expands to 16, if they expand it to 16, they seed the teams as they should. Go back to using the old BCS computer models to seed the teams. Then a team like Ole Miss or South Carolina would be in, and then there's no more argument about you played a different schedule in the SEC than A&M and Texas, playing a imbalanced conference schedules due to the size of the conferences is certainly an impact in influencing how these teams go about their season. All that being said, Lane Kiffin sitting at home crying because you lost at home to a 5-7 Kentucky team and didn't score any points. It is what it is. So I don't feel sorry for him. They lost to LSU on the road. They let that game slip right through their fingers. They're their own architect of their demise in this current college football setup. So again, and I will never ever feel sorry for Lane Kiffin. When we come back on the other side, Billy Liucci joins TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're back on TexAgs Live. A little bit of breaking news. We're scrambling to get it out throughout the commercial break. Sam Mpemba, a defensive end from the University of Georgia that had entered the transfer portal, has committed to Texas A&M. He visited last weekend, so the Aggies have now closed on a pair of last weekend's visitors, both on the defensive line in Deion Hayes and Sam Mpemba. A native of St. Louis, Missouri, 6'4", 240-pounder, played his prep ball at IMG Academy in Florida, was one of the most highly regarded defensive prospects in the country in the class of 2023. Spent 2 years at Georgia, where I am trying to pull up his stats. I'm guessing Nick doesn't have them pulled up either because this literally just happened. But a really good-looking player. I could talk to some folks that saw him on campus this weekend that came away very impressed with his physicality. And the Aggies have closed, and it's another he's listed at linebacker on some sites. He's like a stand-up edge player. Played in just a few games this year, 6 tackles, 3 solo. That was in 2023. That was his freshman year. He redshirted this year, so he's going to have multiple years of eligibility remaining. But highly regarded kid out of high school, as I said, in the from St. Louis, but played at IMG Academy. And we had heard good things over the course of the weekend. Jason Howell, if you're following our transfer portal tracker, Jason said, hearing great things about A&M standing with Sam Mpemba. He gets back home from his visit to College Station, and he makes his announcement here while we are on the air. So, yeah, he only played in 2023. Didn't play at all, looks like, in this past season. So he's going to come to A&M with 3 years of eligibility left. Nick, when you're making that graphic, I believe that's right. I have to check that 2023 game by game. Don't want to do that on air. I'll get a little distracted. But we're awaiting the arrival of Billy Liucci, and we'll have news to talk about with Luch. And so that makes how many, Nicholas, transfer portal commitments?
That moves it up to 8, I believe.
8 total commitments. Yep. We'll get him added to this thread here if you're following on the site. Yeah, so 8 total commitments. And if you need a recap, Nick, go ahead and pop that fancy graphic up on the screen.
I haven't even added him to it yet.
It's okay. Jacob Zeno, quarterback. Michael Riley, tight end. Cornerback Julian Humphrey, a pair of wide receivers, and Micah Hudson and Mario Craver. Tight end Nate Burkacher, defensive end Deion Hayes, and now defensive end / edge player Samuel Mpemba, heading to College Station to join Mike Elko's program. I like some of these guys that they get when they're early in their career. And again, you talk about development. It's something Olin and I discussed in the first hour. These 1-year rentals you better get it right. You better get it right on these 1-year rentals. So the Aggies have gone out and added some guys that do have 1 year of eligibility remaining, like Jacob Zeno. But a lot of these kids on this list are going to have opportunities to play multiple seasons in College Station. Julian Humphrey, Micah Hudson, Mario Craver. I just mentioned Sam Mpemba. So at least half the class has multiple years remaining. So it's not just a 1-year wonder for Mike Elko trying to plug holes in the meantime. And when you combine what they're doing currently in the portal with what they're bringing in from the high school ranks and what they think of the current freshman class, who knows, we'll talk to Billy in a second, maybe see some of those kids in the bowl game. I'm looking at a guy like Dalen Evans. I'm looking at a guy like Solomon Williams, maybe a couple of those offensive linemen. Ashton Bethel-Rollman, Isaiah Williams at receiver. If they really like that group and you're happy with their development and they're coming right along at a rate that you think they can continue to impact games, then it does impact the decisions you make in the transfer portal. Don't forget, if you want to interact with the show, 979-693-1150. Put Callie Garner to work in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Callie, do you have anything left over there before we get to Billy? I'm excited to talk to him about this breaking news. It's always cool when we have breaking news while we're on the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we enjoy that.
Is it fun? Is it? It's always a mad scramble.
It was a mad scramble in that commercial break because Kay casually walks in here and she goes, "Oh, Sam Mpemba committed." Like I was supposed to be looking at my phone the whole time, but there were texts sent and I did miss. I was about 30 seconds behind, but then we had to scramble to get social media content out. Nick's trying to scramble to get graphics ready and remade. So it is hectic, but it gives us something to talk about while we're tap dancing waiting on Billy.
That we are. We have a chat in the on TexAgs, and it says, I think the bigger issue is the top 4 teams having to be conference champs. You basically got the 10th and 11th team in the 3rd and 4th seeds.
Yeah, and that was something that Tom Hart talked about, was he has no issue with the amount of teams that are getting in and could even see it expanded, but you have to seed them according to their worth, not according to a conference championship one, as we welcome in Billy Liucci talking a little college football playoffs and the snooze fest that were the games, Billy, but it has generated a lot of discussion about what the playoff is currently, what it looks like in the future. Was a right decision made, but I think we need to table that and not bury the lead here with Sam and Pemba committing while we're in that last commercial break.
While I was in the car. Got to get depth on that D-line and got to get guys with talent, and he's certainly both of those. Obviously, was a really coveted recruit coming out of high school before going to Athens, and I don't have a problem with the A&M to Georgia pipeline.
It's a nice jacket. What is that?
Thank you. It's
is it leather? It looks like a pleather.
It's still got the. I guess this is a tag I need to take off, so it's telling me that it's rag and bone. Thank you.
Wasn't that a guy? Does he have a song, Rag and Bone Man? I'm only human after all. Is that who sings that? Rag and Bone Man.
I don't know that song.
I'm only human after all. Don't put the blame on.
Oh, don't put your blame on me.
Yeah. Is that not
We're
Rag and
only
Bone
human.
Man? Who sings
No,
that,
that's
Nick?
not Rag and Bone Man. That's like I think it's like a
Rag and Bone Man, English singer.
Yeah,
sings human.
Okay. I didn't know that. Was
Come on, man.
Well, I don't listen to English singers.
I didn't know that.
I love English singers. I'm just kidding. I love a good English singer.
Like Adele?
Oasis, Adele.
The Beatles?
A little before my time. But
Is
yeah.
it?
I mean, there's a lot of them. There, you could go on and on.
Okay.
George Michael, I think, was British.
Olin cut me off 3 times this morning with pop culture references. Olin, of all people, that did it.
What were they?
I was on like real trains of thought. Twice he did Michael Jackson references. One was Steve Miller, Take the Money and Run. But we were talking about the transfer portal, so that gets us kind of back on track here.
Well, let's talk about Impenda real quick again before we go on. I want to talk. I heard you and Olin talking portal, and I've got some. I kind of agree, kind of disagree. I think there's a middle ground we need to discuss. But thank you, Richard. Congratulations. Big
What did he
Lions
do?
win yesterday.
He didn't do anything.
Well, he didn't kill the season officially.
Oh, that was.
And Zane, you know what I was worried about?
That was on his.
No,
platter.
but you know what I was worried about, Zane? I did post Victory Monday, which is Dan's Monday coffee thing, and I posted that, and then they didn't win. So I was like, what if they just never won a game again? So I was a little on the hook, too. So Richard's not very talkative this morning.
He's in a weird.
How about
mood.
that? That was weird as hell. It's going to be a moping Monday around here, apparently, Bronny. It's also a Penda Monday.
Impemba.
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 So I like
You're going to carver this thing.
guys that Carver Craver. I have no problem with going and getting guys that Kirby Smart wanted that saw the field on his defense. He's young, right? What year is he now? He's 2.
No, he's got 3 years.
3 years left.
He redshirted. Based off what I could find, I think he redshirted this year. Played as a true freshman.
He's got a lot of talent. And again, you don't get on the field that young at Georgia on that side of the ball. And it's a dire need for A&M. Let's not kid ourselves. I know you're looking for, and this is true, you got to go find some guys that have started and played a lot of high-level football on this D-line. Because look who you're replacing. You're replacing Shamar Stewart, Nick Scorton, who both earned all SEC mentions. Scorton, a first-teamer. Shamar was, second team? And then you're replacing Shamar Turner, who's going to be an NFL draft pick. You're replacing 3 NFL guys, two all-SEC guys. We can't sit here, Bronny, and act like it was a good haul if they don't go get guys that have played a lot of football and that are really good. But you also have to fill out depth, and you also have to get guys that you think can be really good. And I think he fits this mold. He has the potential where we look back and go, man, that was a real score in the portal.
And they're doing that a lot. And one of my favorite things is that they're getting there are some guys that are 1 year needs and fixes to plug holes. But when you look at Mpemba, when you look at Craver, when you look at Micah Hudson, these are guys that are going to impact your roster down the road. And
at least multiple years.
Right. Well, we think they could, because you never know in this ever-changing world.
But you get them, Brawny, where you can get them this year and they make an impact, hopefully, because they need to, wide receiver and D-line in particular. But what are those guys like in year 2 in your system? You talked about it earlier, a little development, but in year 2, when they're not a 1 year rental, and yes, you can have them longer if they're stay in school type guys versus get drafted, which either way I think you win. Man, I agree with what you're saying earlier to an extent. You guys mentioned, well, you can't buy a team, you can't.
Well, I'm not saying you can't. What I'm saying is there's no proof of concept of that being the way to go.
There's also no proof of concept that not doing it's the way to go anymore.
I would lean toward there's more proven. There's more proven in holding guys, developing them in your program. And I hate to do it just as much as anybody, but you got to give Texas credit. They did, man.
Okay, let me disagree with you. I agree with what you're saying. Developing guys is better. Texas, most of their guys have been like homegrown and developed. I think it's very important that you do that. But I also think this. I think it sounds like losers limp a little bit if you're sitting here going, man, you better go add some impact players as well, because Texas did it. You guys were back and forth on Ohio State. Look, they went all in on the portal, but 90% of their guys playing are from Ohio State still. But they got a quarterback in Will Howard that they thought was an exceptional portal ad, and he's looked like it a few times this year, but just the right time the other night. They went and got Downs, in elite football player. They went and got, they got Judkins from Ole Miss, who's a first SEC leading rusher. And there's probably more that I'm not thinking of. But you've got to look at Texas. Last year, how big a deal was A.D. Mitchell for him? How big has Makuba been this year? How big has Golden been this year?
I think what you're doing is you're highlighting, and I agree with everything.
Better get those guys is all I'm saying.
But you look at the rest of Texas's roster, the offensive line and tight end are all homegrown.
Yep.
The defensive line.
Most of their team.
Is homegrown.
So I agree with the exception.
You can't go buy a roster. You can go buy players that impact your roster, but like with what Kiffin's doing.
What did Oregon do? I don't know who all their transfers are, but I know Dylan Gabriel is.
Sure.
Evan Stewart, hell, he might win him a game in the playoff. He's good enough to, but he's not their best receiver.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is, even Oregon, most of their team is going to be homegrown. Now, their next quarterback's probably portal as well. Bo Nix was portal. You better get, like, Ole Miss, right? You telling me, like, if I gave you the option of going homegrown, or I said, hey, A&M's D-line is they need guys this year, and I said, okay, you could go spend a lot of money and get Walter Nolan and Princely Umanmielen. Now, knowing now what you know about how those two guys played this year, I think that would be money very well spent. For, like, if that type guy was out there this year for A&M, I would say I will skew my numbers and skew my desire of what I want to pay this position to go get those guys, because I think that will result directly in wins. So I think I agree with what you're saying. I think developing them in your system, in your program, part of that culture, that's going to still play. And it might play better.
Yeah, I think it's more efficient use of your time and money for sure.
But you better bring in some studs.
Absolutely.
You better bring in guys in this league that can change football games for you, and not sit here and get guys that don't and try to pretend they are. So I think when I look at like what they're doing in the portal now, I want to see them get some. I'm not saying there's got to be there might not be a Walter Nolan type D lineman out there. There might be. He might not be in there yet. He might.
Really good looking kid from Utah went in this morning. Like
there's going to be a bunch going in. I think Elko I don't know if he said this, but I know it's what he's thinking. I think he's right on to realize there's a second wave of portal guys that we're starting to see now, and you don't have to panic early. So I think on the D line and adding who they added this morning is a nice start. And I know you've been writing about guys at Iowa State, and you and I know of a couple more that aren't in yet that we're waiting to see if they go in. That D-line pool is about to start looking pretty nice. They might be better off having not. I think they will be better off with some of those bottom guys that people probably would have been like, oh, okay, that are going to places like what? UCLA is the Arkansas guy, and where'd the Purdue?
I don't think he's committed
I don't think. I just don't think. I don't think those guys are.
Princewell Umanmielen, like
Princewell who went to Ole Miss. Only really, I think just because his brother was there. I don't think he's that good. Even I like the DN from Nebraska, and I like Pyburn, but I think you can do just as good or better by waiting and being patient. I think you're going to see that pan out.
There are two additions on the defensive line so far. Are an old guy that's coming in for 1 year that was hugely productive at Pitt and was on his way to having a really good season at Colorado before it was ended by injury.
Get to the QB, that's for sure.
And then you've added a guy that's like still kind of young and promising. So where you lost a guy like Malik Silla who flashed some things, maybe you're replacing that with a younger version who's flashed some things off the edge. So it's been pretty good so far with their first two additions. They've got to go out and get big bodies on the interior. I know you've mentioned that. The Iowa State kid who's out of Richmond Foster, I think would fill a big-time need. But
I will say I was watching Iowa State in the Big 12 title game, and they've got this guy, and his last name's Orange. And I was telling you, I thought his name was Orange Julius, but his name was, they call him Big Citrus. And I'm watching him chase after the Arizona State quarterback and tackle Scattaboo out on like a screen pad. And I'm going,
Dominic Orange.
I'm going, how the hell does A&M not have a guy like this? And Iowa State does, because he was big, he could move. And when I heard that an Iowa State D lineman might be going in, I called you. This was, a few days before he went in. And I said, I hope it's this big citrus guy. And it wasn't. But I actually think the other guy's a better player. And again, that Richmond Foster connection, if I was at A&M, and I think this is probably what they do, I would look around the country and be like, who are Texas kids that didn't get recruited by A&M or Texas or LSU, out of high school, that went and scattered all over the country and are doing really good elsewhere?
Like a Heisman
I don't care
finalist.
if it's Northwestern, if it's
Boise State
or USC or Notre Dame or Florida State, wherever they're at. And I would look and then just start the process, find out who wants to come home. Because 90% of those kids wanted to play at probably A&M or Texas coming out of high school. And so so he's kind of one of those guys that to me would fall into that. Now, you've got a bunch of other suitors, and after you've already played college a couple years away, you don't quite feel that draw to, quote, stay close to home. But I think a lot of kids, it'll help you with them wanting to come back.
All right, let's go to a commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about what A&M's done at receiver and what they still need to do, as well as continue our conversations on A&M's kind of their navigation of the transfer portal, now in a dead period, and just pick up a commitment from Sam Mpemba. You're listening to TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, welcome back to TexAgs Live. Transfer portal popping off. This is a dead period. It's funny enough, Billy, I just put on the boards like, hey, this might slow down because of the holiday. A&M's in the bowl game. They can't host visitors until January 1st, which for the first time that I can ever remember, A&M is going to have visitors on New Year's Day. But everybody is kind of adapting and trying to morph into this portal world. And, as soon as I say, hey, this thing may calm down a little bit over the next week, A&M gets a commitment. So that's about what you can expect in this portal world. But Jason had a report over the weekend. Aggies felt like they were in a great spot with Mpemba coming out of the visit. So now they've closed on these last two defensive line commits were visitors this past weekend, and A&M able to close them out after struggling to close out a Kelby Collins and a Jack Pyburn over the first couple of weeks.
I think Mpemba.
He played in 4 games, by the way, last year, so he redshirted.
Craver and Hudson are like really talented dudes. They just need some development. Even Craver, who played a ton for Mississippi State, they just need some development. Like you said earlier, they're still young. The Georgia fans wanted to keep Mpemba. That was not like one of these guys that leaves A&M. You go, yeah, they weren't going to play. They wanted him to stay and develop. I would compare it to like almost like a young Ryland Kennedy for A&M, where if he'd have left, you go, man, it's not. I mean, it kind of is a killer until you fill out your portal room to see what that D-line room looks like, because Ryland very well might start, but. Like prior to this year, if Ryland Kennedy would have left after seeing spot duty as a freshman, you'd have been like, yeah, it doesn't kill us because we got Scorton and Stewart and Turner and blah, blah, blah. But, damn, he was a young guy we really wanted to see develop. As opposed to a Malik Silla, who you mentioned a minute ago. It's kind of like a replacement for Silla. But Malik had been here 3 full years. Not played very much. I think he could play at Mississippi State. He could make an impact for them. I think it was probably a good pick for him. But I think in general, like after 3 years, you feel differently than a guy that's as young as Micah, Sam, and Mario.
And like for Micah, it's just about getting healthy and kind of getting a reset.
Yeah.
And I love these guys that come in and have multiple years to impact your roster. What else? So receiver, they've got 2, and obviously KC Concepcion, a massive target for A&M. But I don't believe that's it at receiver. Like I think they would take him plus another one.
They'd take 4.
And because I think there's a need and a want for a bigger kind of outside guy.
Yeah, I think that's where Nick Anderson was so coveted, and let's not act like he wasn't. I mean, that was a definite
gut punch
guy that because it fit 2 needs. It was a proven veteran playmaker in college football, and he was that big outside guy. I think if they can get Concepcion, that would be. I mean, if you just got those 3,
how would you navigate it though? Would you
wait?
Yeah, because there's reports.
I'd wait, and I mean, if there was a guy that I thought could come in and make a difference, that if I think he's a 9 and a 7.5 came in where A&M's at right now, I would take 7.5 and still go after the 9.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I would be at with it, but I wouldn't take somebody less than somebody that I think is going to have an impact unless I planned on taking 4. And I wouldn't worry at that point if I thought this guy that came in, let's say, in between now and decision date, I wouldn't take a guy unless I thought they were impact. Maybe even if they're not quite that impact, but impact. And if they were a guy with some size, I'd go there because of the unknown of waiting. Now, if you take a 3rd, it's going to be harder to get Concepcion because of numbers.
Unless you've been up front with him, hey, we're getting somebody completely different from you. We're still looking for that.
I still think it's easier said than done when you play. Then that target's on you for whoever you're competing against. But it's fine. Like if that player's good enough. If not, you wait and go all in, and it's risky business, but you do it. I think there's going to be guys that pop up, Bronny, in the next few weeks that are going to be like, oh, okay, let's see what we can do with this. I think that'll happen.
Well, and I don't know. I didn't hear the bit from Josh Pate last night. He was talking about Concepcion and his visit to North Carolina. He's been told that North Carolina has an exorbitant amount of money to put toward him or to put toward that position. That's something that you have to take into account. And again, I agree. I'd wait on him, especially if there's another guy that fits what I'm looking for, a bigger guy out there that I can close on. I've got 3. That way, Concepcion, okay, we can make a full run at him. He might just be the cherry on top.
I think A&M's got to, a time or two, spend an exorbitant amount of money. And I know that brings with it a whole bunch of different issues for Mike Elko. Let's say you did it with him. What about the rest of your room?
Exactly.
It's hard, but why can everyone else do it? And here's the deal. I'm going to tell you this. As I say this, I believe Elko will do that here and there, but I also think he's only going to do it with 100% certainty, guys. In other words, I'm trying to think like a Caleb Downs.
I don't think Nick Anderson's 100%. There's some real questions about what was going on injury-wise.
For that amount, what I'm talking about, I don't think I would do that with Nick Anderson. And I think A&M, I know they were plenty competitive.
Yes.
And then some.
Yes.
They didn't lose him to LSU. They lost him to LSU because LSU convinced him that in a one and done situation that is possible for him, they sold him on Nussmeier with all his NFL talk and all that, and say you're going to go come play with an NFL quarterback. That's what sold him, and maybe a lot of the recent history at the position there. There was a lot to overcome on A&M side. It wasn't money. I'm talking about not what they were going to do with Nick Anderson or what LSU had to do. I'm talking about coming out of your comfort zone, doing what Pate's talking about North Carolina, thinking about doing with him, what Texas did with, I don't agree, and I could end up being wrong. I don't agree with how much guys like, who is the O-lineman, Fasusi,
to
Oklahoma, and then Galveston Ball safety to Texas, right? Like the stuff I'd heard, whether true or not, and I believe it to be true, in terms of their numbers, that would scare me as a head coach for high school kids. Now, if it was Christian Kirk, Myles Garrett, keeping it more recent, like Kelvin Banks, maybe Colin Simmons. Like there are some guys where I'd go, hell yeah, done. At safety, I'd be more worried about it. But for the amount now where these numbers are going out of high school, but there would be exceptions, right? There would be exceptions. Penei Sewell, if he's coming in, like those type guys. But out of the portal, even more so, because you can know so much more. I would, like if Nick Scorton were coming out this year, he'd probably make twice as what he made last year.
Well, you look at the
but I would do it. But I would do it because it's a proven guy out of the Big Ten that, like, you are 100% certain of the impact. And I know he slowed down towards the end of the year, but he was first team All-SEC guy. He's going to be a first or second round pick. And you knew that when you took him. So I'd come out of that comfort zone. I'm not saying it's a specific guy. I'm not saying it's Concepcion, but I'm saying I definitely want to see A&M down the stretch here try to make that happen with a player or two.
You're right. You have to be very, very careful about who you do it and what room you do it in.
Can't miss on those.
Because, like, what the kid wanted from Nevada, the offensive tackle, said, yeah, I'll come to A&M for X amount of dollars. And then, like, no way, dude. Like, that's a crazy amount of money.
No.
And we got a really good offensive line group. We feel good about what's coming back. We feel good about our depth there and how they're being developed. There's no reason to add that into the fold at that position.
And for what you were doing, for what they did on the field, I mean, you guys would be shocked on some of these guys. shopping themselves around the country, just what I hear on the agent side of things, it's actually insane. Like their production you had one guy that wanted essentially, when you really cut into it, like $100,000 per like games he'd played. You know, as a veteran, not like
this isn't an A&M guy, by the way. This is a portal kid.
But you got A&M guys that are going elsewhere and getting paid like way more than I would ever think they're worth. So that's why, like, say the O-line, right? There's a couple guys out there A&M's recruiting that, and I won't say who, but if you sign two of them, you're north of $2.5 million for two of them. It's crazy. You've got guys proven here that are going to get nice raises and they're going to be in the same system, and they're going to be in the same offseason under Moffitt. They know exactly what to do, and it's kind of going back to what you talked about earlier. They matriculate through and ideally develop and go on to the NFL, and that's exactly what you're going to look up. And Trey Zune's going to be in the NFL, coming out of Texas A&M, and Chase Basantis is going to be in the NFL. And Reed Adams has given himself a chance. Hopefully Naboo all the way back from that ACL injury. Crownover, there's still so much potential there, and now he's got experience behind it. Fathery. These guys are all going to have a chance, and several of them are going to be in the NFL in a year or two. And to go out, so what's not talked about, I don't think our fans, our listeners, the people on social media that just want to crap on everything every time there's something bad and race to that app and cry about how bad it is. And you guys, if y'all only knew the number of text messages and calls I get, if you knew how many people called and texted me of like very high levels here at A&M even, to my buddies, to former players, to random, like, I had a girl that doesn't even follow the stuff that her friends, guy friends that went to another school were texting her about, saying to ask me. All about this Micah Hudson and this fake, made-up NIL package that includes, you guys are dumb. I know it seems like there's no limit. You are stupid and emotionally unintelligent. Emotionally unintelligent. Not stupid and unintelligent, but emotionally, that you see that and you want to get angry. You want to go, I hate where this has gone. And for someone to make that up, that the guy requires a driver and a chauffeur. And look, it's not true to 3 cars, but there probably are guys that require that in today's day and age around the country. I've heard specifically people with 2. But the driver and all these demands and requirements and team doctors don't matter, and you get to decide. Clearly, someone at Texas Tech made that up based on an exaggeration of a player going out, and our own fans believed it because you wanted something to bitch about and something to make fun of A&M about and a reason to think that like A&M was screwing up, and you jumped on it and you cling to it. It was, if you go back and reread how freaking stupid it is, to all my friends that message me, to anyone up in a position of influence at A&M, that you bought it. Come on now. I understand if you want to ask about it, but if you believed it for 1 second, it's because you wanted to believe it, because you wanted to be pissed about NIL, or you wanted to have something else to be mad about a couple weeks after A&M lost to Texas.
I'm telling you what, if that rat don't light your fire, your wood's wet. We're going to a commercial break. We come back more with Luch. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, real quick segment. Try to get back on the clock before the end of the show. Ryan Brauninger in the host chair. TexAgs Live with Billy Liucci. Inside the Rollo Insurance Studios, we're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Luch, what do you want to do? We can go quick hit basketball to get us back on the clock. Then we can go long to talk about the portal some more.
Somebody said your face was like it's Christmas morning when you realized I was going into a full blown rant.
Who said that?
Just my friend.
Oh, yeah. I just stepped aside. Nick actually came over the mic to tell me, I know he's ranting, but we need a break. And I was like, I'm not gonna stop.
Hey, Nick, you're the only Saint Nick I'm gonna disagree with this week.
He wasn't trying to get me to cut you off.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, I know you're trying to go, but we're gonna run a little long today, buddy. Merry Christmas.
All right.
Who's working today? Besides Callie, the silencer, Mope, the long-faced Richard.
Lions won again.
If Zane was in the mob, they'd call him like today. A lot of days, we'd probably call him like Richie Longface.
Richie Longface, that's pretty good.
Who was in there? It was Jimmy the Crumb,
Chubby,
Jimmy the Crumb, Richie Longface, and Saint Nick.
It's Saint Nick and
yeah.
Chubby was driving him. Had an interesting family connection with Chubby. Found out about this week. That was funny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kyle, teammates of Kyle Flood in college.
Yep.
All right. So you want to go Aggie basketball real quick?
Yeah.
I mean,
Flood. Don't get me started on Kyle Flood.
Scored 77 points. No Wade Taylor. And then Buzz was kind of.
By the way, I got dug up some old Flood tweets. Now that probably more than any position is where they've done a job, and that more than maybe any position is what I'm really encouraged. Well, I love the way A&M's recruiting the secondary and O-line right now. Like just what those two rooms are going to look like this fall. Now, a lot of them in each spot are going to be true freshmen.
We blew past the basketball.
No, we're going to come back to it. But what both those positions are going to look like this fall, Bronny, when you bring back who you're bringing back and you put in those true freshmen.
You said offensive line and DB?
And secondary. Yeah. I think those are going to look as good as they have around here in a long time when you just talk about overall talent. Just top from your senior class to your freshman class, depth, talent.
I like running
possibilities. I love running back. I mean, yeah, I love and to get Moss and Owens back at the top, like I don't think people realize like those two healthy could be as good as any combo in the conference.
All right, let's go to break. Come back, talk whatever you want to talk about. We'll go a little bit long. On the final episode of TexAgs Live before Christmas, we're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Right back to close the show. Maybe go a little bit long for those of you watching on YouTube. Join us back here in the Rollo Insurance Studios. All right, final segment of the show. More breaking news as we scramble to get stuff out. TJ Searcy, a defensive lineman from the University of Florida, has just announced his commitment to Texas A&M. The Aggies go back into the portal for the second time during this radio program and pull out a really promising pass rusher, Billy, edge player. This was one when he went in, the alarm bell started going off on our end that, like, the Aggies are going to be not only real players here, but he was going to be highly, highly coveted.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, juice off the edge there. What is he, about 6'5", between 250 and 260? Long, athletic. Exactly what I've said that I'm wanting to see more of along this defensive line is length and athleticism. I know they lost a guy in Silla who had that, but again, hadn't made really an impact. Seriously, to me, I think he's got 2 years of eligibility left, and he's an NFL football player.
Yes, he's
an NFL player.
When you talk to people that cover Florida, they're like, the upside on this kid is tremendous, and like looks the part, the whole thing.
Yeah, and those guys know him. You know, Chaos and Jay Bateman are very familiar with him. They know exactly what they're getting in him, and they probably told Elko, like, yes, let's get him.
Yeah, and it's important for, I think it's important for Bateman and Sean Spencer to get this one over the line because they went in on Kelby Collins. They went in on Jack Pyburn.
Well, and by the way, there were a couple others that were there are a couple guys there that were very possibly going in that I think A&M would have had a great shot with just because of those connections, just because those guys were the ones that recruited them to Florida that didn't go in. And you combine like those two with the 400-pound guy and Pyburn and Kelby Collins and now Searcy, like, what the hell's Florida been doing on defense the last couple of years with those linemen?
They had the defensive coordinator stuff.
I'm saying, I know, but I'm saying it was a wealth of talent in the front seven that they did not capitalize on at all. And you look at Scooby Williams, and he came to A&M, and people were kind of in Gainesville, oh, he's really talented, but blah, 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 blah. Man, they really missed Scooby in that Texas game. Like, he's an impact, like when he got hurt, he's an impact guy for that Aggie defense. And I think you really look ahead to what he could be next year. But I think Brawny TJ Searcy could be, I'm getting him confused with Cersei Lannister, who, by the way, was at.
Are we past, Nick? Are we past radio? I don't have my okay, if you're on, listen to us on radio.
Can we start cussing yet?
We're going to keep going on YouTube as well as on TexAgs. If you're on radio, Louis Bellina Show coming up.
Because I'm about to, because, Steve McKinney texts in. He says, racked up some DNs this week. They going for any big run stuffing DTs? Thanks, Steve. We've only been saying that
we could go for a little bit about the McKinney brothers and what I've learned about them.
Why don't you tell me what you've learned? Because I've obviously, they're family.
You've been giving me insights on these two, but
for years.
We are on a very funny group chat, me, you, and the McKinney brothers. Your assessment of Seth, I think, is the best. But these two, where they get their information from, for guys that were in the NFL for so long, they're super successful businessmen now, for them to be sending us TikToks of information, it's bizarre.
They got a lot of time on their hands, it seems like, for guys that like do a lot, in their careers. They it's like, what do you guys?
Well, and they're kind of like, they have a propensity to not have shirts on. Seth with his CrossFit stuff, and then I get sent a picture of Steve with no shirt on in a parking lot from a couple weeks ago.
I don't know what that was.
I didn't see that. It was in our group. Yeah.
Thank God I didn't see it.
And because Seth was like, Steve was like, my pecs are looking great. It's just a little much.
I've got so many stories. I told a story about Steve in front of his son the other day.
Oh, no.
I checked beforehand. I'm like, can I tell this story? I'm like, Hunter, are you prepared to hear this? And that Hunter, his son, not Goodwin, not Big Pants, but I had to tell the story, and it's not suitable for on air, nor is it suitable I could tell it on air, but I'd like to get Steve's permission first. He let me tell it in front of his son. He'd probably be okay with it, but it is absolutely hilarious. It's nothing bad, but it's classic Steve. Like, Steve's the type that would let me tell that story. Seth's the type that would run from that story. Like, you'd think he was running for, office. He's Tim Walz or J.D. Vance, but probably Walz based on his look. But he would be like, oh no, don't tell that story. It's just like some basic, funny college story, nothing sinister or bad. But Steve would be like, oh yeah, tell it. That's great. They're such the opposite, but yet so much the same. It's hilarious.
All right. We went a little long. What do you want to get into now?
Well, I think let's revisit this
Seriously?
The D-line real quick.
Yep.
Basketball, start with basketball. You were talking earlier. Rest Wade Taylor. I mean, my God, do they need him healthy? He's such a special player. He's the heart and soul of the team. Took that shot to the groin area. It looked to me like, I'm not saying it's anything bad, but it looked like more than that. Before, he definitely looked like he got hit there, but also like it just kind of looked awkward the whole play. Let him get all the way back. It doesn't seem like anything significant. This was the perfect time to rest him. Probably rest him one more game if he needs it. Or maybe he needs that game to get ready to come in and not be cold against Texas. I don't think it really matters for Wade. He probably just needs practice. But gosh, that start to SEC play. I say that, but I'm looking through the whole schedule for a light stretch, and it's hard to find one. You might be able to find a lighter stretch than that start, but the start is absolutely insane. I don't know if you've got it pulled up, but to read it out, and obviously
the first 4 games of the SEC
obviously
slate.
They start with a very emotionally charged one at home against Texas. That was conveniently placed when no students are in town, but I'm not worried about the crowd. I think people are going to swarm to that one.
So we looked at it earlier. It's Texas at Oklahoma, Alabama at Kentucky. Of those 4, which one is the most winnable?
I mean, it better be Texas at home.
Right, yeah.
But
Kentucky's got holes. They lost.
They just got drilled by Ohio State.
Yes.
No, all of those games are winnable. Bama, I think, of those 4, I still think, even though OU's rolling, I still think Bama of those 4 is the best team. But they're coming to you. Going and winning in Norman's going to be tough. That team's sitting there undefeated, right? Like I watched them they beat Michigan basically, essentially on a buzzer beater. Not buzzer beater, but like 3 seconds left. That is a brutally, brutally hard schedule. But the Aggies are a really, really tough team to beat. They are. They've proven that already so far.
It's a perfect time of the season. If you're going to have somebody banged up like Wade, this is the perfect. If you have to have them banged up right now,
because you're not beating Purdue without him,
right?
And you're not winning SEC
stretch.
games without him. So yeah, it's the time to do it. I mean, again, let him get all the way healthy. This team is really good. The metrics say it,
and they're old.
They're old, and they know they like. This is not just an old team, Brawny. Now, this is an old team that understands success. They understand recovering from failure. A lot of these guys were on a team that finished one game off an SEC title. These guys have had postseason success on every level. 3 years in a row, real success in the SEC tournament. You look at here's some of the teams they've beaten in that tournament. They've beaten Auburn. They've beaten Arkansas. They've beaten Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even waste time going down to Florida. They've beaten real teams in that tournament 3 years in a row. The NIT, run to Madison Square Garden, March Madness, they've gone in there and got upset. They've gone in there and smoked a team that people were picking as a trendy team to make a run. They lost to a great U of H team on the final second. An amazing comeback. So their season, they're battle-tested in this league. The only statistic, not the only, but I mean, like, their shooting percentages are awful, or their shooting percentages are awful, but the offensive rebounding, the defense, and just the clutchness of them. They're a really hard team to beat. I don't know where they rank in the SEC. Time will tell. But I'd imagine they'll figure out a way for themselves to be up there.
All right, playoff stuff. What did you think? Obviously, the games were a lot of non-competitive, but I also don't think that it's time to just throw your hands up and say, "See, we told you that 12 was too many." It's 1 year.
I got thoughts.
Well, let's hear them. That's why we're here.
I'm assuming you and Olin already talked about this.
I just said it's too quick to just say that there's too many teams. It's 1 year. I get what's on file now, but it's not a precedent yet.
Okay. I don't think you can ever go back. That's my concern with this NIL thing or the portal and NIL. Like, it's hard to go back. I do think 12 is too many. I think time will tell if the 11, 12, the last at-large team can win it. I think football, it's so much harder to do that than basketball or baseball, like the upsets and making a run, because there's just typically such a physical component to it, such a difference. Now, maybe a tail-end SEC or Big Ten team could do it at some point in time, but I think one thing I do know enough of after 1 year that I don't ever want to see again, it's this crap of Boise and Arizona getting buys.
100%. That's true.
I mean, like, the people that put that together they're dumbasses. They don't understand. Like, no one in the room, like, how common sense cannot win out in a room of people that are there to fix the sport or to make it better and improve it and not make it worse. And no one has the balls to just step up and say, guys, we're being idiots here. Here is why. Because we're going to look up and it's going to be Boise State and Arizona State with buys. And we're going to put a 3 by Boise's name. Make them the 3rd seed in this tournament. Who does it like that? Nobody does that. And we're going to make Arizona State the 4. I'm great with the Big 10 getting an the Big 12 getting an auto bid. Now, quite frankly, I do not think that there should be a group of 5 or whatever we're calling it now, auto bid. Like, I don't think Boise
You think it should be like, it just depends on the year?
If you're in it, if the committee thinks you're one of the 12 best teams, put them in.
Would it be beneficial? I think it would be, but I'm asking you, what do you think about using the old BCS computer stuff to take the human element out of it?
Didn't we hate the BCS computer stuff when it was a thing?
Well, it was limiting it to 4. Now that you're going to 12, it may be more.
I think giving it a bigger, make it a component.
Yeah,
but I just like put people on there with common sense.
But you're not going to, man. Everybody's going to have a personal agenda.
Get Ward Manual with an E the hell off my committee. But it's not his fault. He's a spokesman. And he sucks at that. But the whole committee, they should have nothing to do with college football ever again. I'm serious. They should. I don't even know who's on it. It could be a friend of mine. I don't know. Because, RC was on it a few years ago. But the one right now, like this particular group, shuffle them off, get them the hell out of there. Because, and no one to step up and go.
This is the way you were going.
No one to step up and go, this is stupid, guys. They're getting their reward by getting in. They have an automatic bid. I think the Big 12 deserved it this year. There might be years where it's awful. Like, I like this Arizona State team. There might be years where there's just some bad. So, but then to not look at that buy thing and see how stupid that is unbelievable. So I think you've got to get rid of that first and foremost. And here's my second thing. If we're going to do this, at this point, I thought 8 was enough. Make it 16. 12 is clunky. It's silly.
So would you do away with the buys?
Yeah. By the way, I think it's a long break for some of these teams. Like,
if you didn't play in a conference championship game, you wouldn't have a first round bye, though.
Yeah.
So they're getting.
But I want to do away with the buys. So, I mean, to me, like, I would absolutely want, at this point, just do 16, do 1 versus 16, 215, all the way up.
See
8,
that
9.
like a March Madness bracket.
Yeah, I'd add 4 more teams. I'd do 16. The 17th and 18th team are never going to win a national title in football. So all those people crying at that level, it will encompass like the Big Ten team that's crying, the SEC team that's crying.
Unless the 15 or 16 is an SEC team, or maybe even a Big Ten team. But if
they're
the 15
still probably not going to win a natty.
Yeah, but there's enough talent in this league where they could do it. We've seen it. I know you said baseball's different.
It is.
But Ole Miss, last team in, wins the national championship.
I agree. I think
Florida,
I
last
think,
team in, they go to the Final Four.
I think those are completely different, but I do think those teams are capable of winning a game. Like, I don't know that South Carolina or Ole Miss might have been the 16th team. You think Oregon would want to play them?
No way.
Play Sellers or Jackson Dart and that Ole Miss offense and defense in game 1. So I think they could stir it up. I think the fact that they have 3 losses and Bama and teams like that, I think that tells you that they're flawed football teams that are ultimately going to get exposed. But, man, it would make it pretty damn exciting. My problem with it is this. Make it 16 at this point. Get rid of all this wonkiness and do 8 teams get home games this past weekend. That'd
have been sick.
It would have been amazing. There would have been 8. Imagine Oregon versus Alabama
at Autzen.
Or Oregon versus South Carolina at Autzen. So do 16 teams, 8 this weekend, and then get it back. There'd be 4 games this weekend. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And you're not adding to the season, which is always, I think, a legitimate concern. That's what I would do. All right, big day though. Before we close, right? Big day for
those are massive gets.
Elko and the okay. So now your D line. Now you're at 3, and we've said 4 or 5 they need. And I think the number will end up being like 5.
Yep, interior now.
You need interior.
Tyler Onyedin. I would keep an eye on the kid at Utah that just went in.
Yep.
I think A&M will kick the tires there. And then who knows, man? Like
there's going to be others.
There was some really, I said in our in-home visit last night, there was some really cryptic tweets from some Clemson defensive linemen that have eligibility left that were like, thank you, Clemson. Had a great time kind of thing.
Well, I saw one from number 11, and I watched him play against Texas, and that dude is a straight-up wrecking ball, and that's what you're talking about. Like, and there's going to be guys from other places, too. You and I've heard of an SEC guy that's likely to go in, has not yet. Again, play the waiting game a little bit, but don't go into this waiting game and this kind of like what we're calling a second window, needing to sign 5 D linemen or 3 or 4 wide receivers. So now they've got 2 receivers. The need is 3, potentially 4.
Why don't you say it like Logan?
What's he say?
Potential.
Did I just say that? Yeah, I did say
can't stand
potential.
that.
I know. I say
Why
potential.
does he do that?
I don't know.
He's
Logan
weird.
does a lot of weird things. But potentially 4. But you've got 2. So you really need 1, maybe 2. So you're in a good spot there. On the D line, we woke up this morning, they had 1. If you're going to sign 4 or 5, and probably 5, going in with 1 is to this second window is a little daunting because your hit rate has to be so high. Now to sit here with 3, the 2 they added today, if you just talk about like natural talent, you added 2 2 pretty gifted guys.
Well, they're different. And Pemba is more of that edge pass rusher. Seriously puts his hand in the ground, light down. Hayes. Be interested if there's another maybe bendy edge guy that they want that goes in the portal. Not only playoff teams, there's bowl games happening all week.
Yeah.
And so you could see more and more of these guys jump in.
But I was saying earlier, and I mean it, what we're not doing enough of is it like getting fired up about the guys that they're keeping. And I know nothing is official yet, but I've been saying it. There's a starter, maybe 2, that are even like remotely, and I'm not saying worrisome, but even like, yeah, we know people are going to be targeting this guy, and for this reason or that reason, he's a little bit low-hanging fruit, but we want to keep him. And by the way, I think A&M can keep this guy or 2, okay? I do think that's more likely that they keep them than don't, right? But if that's all you're talking about on your roster, because the Aggies have not lost a guy yet, that they are sweating.
Do you know why?
It doesn't mean they didn't want some of these guys to stay, but like backups that would stay for this money, because there is a salary cap, let's say, that every school works with. It's all different. That's the problem. But, okay, you want to be here, you can stay. We want you to. Your depth. Might start some games. Look at guys like Dewberry, Shanahan, like they would have loved to have kept them for you go up here, and that's your prerogative. You want to go chase this or this, like it doesn't make sense because we're working to keep, we've got Chase Basantis, we're working to keep Armaje Reed-Adams. Mark Naboo should be coming back. Like we've got Blake Ivy, you got Papa Fua, you got these young interior, so they haven't lost anyone, not to say that they didn't want, that's not the right way to phrase it. They haven't lost anyone, in my opinion, Brauning, that has actually, not one, that has actually hurt them going out. And that's a big damn deal. And we're going to spend so much time and energy talking about who's coming in, and they do need impact coming in. They do. They need it at receiver. They need it at D-line. They need it at tight end. They need impact. And by the way, if you don't think blocking 255, 260-pound tight ends are impact, then you didn't watch the Texas game. And you didn't watch the South Carolina game. And you didn't watch the Auburn game. So that is impact. That's role, impact via a role, right? But those three positions, probably from there, it's just, hey, there's a great player here. We can be better as a football team.
Do you know where the phrase knock on wood comes from?
Actually, I do not.
So apparently,
Did not know I was going to learn something.
Well, because you were knocking on wood, and I was going to tell you where that came from, but I'll let you finish your thought.
Yeah,
I always get criticized.
I would have forgot. I would have forgot.
The Norse believed that there were goddesses of luck in trees.
You had to shake them out.
So before you would go do something that you needed luck for, you knocked on the tree. So
wood.
To wake up the goddesses of luck.
Hello, goddess. Hello.
Knock on wood. All right.
There's another.
Do you know where the phrase arm and a leg, cost you an arm and a leg, come from?
No.
I believe it's from Jack the Ripper. He would cut up his victims and put them in suitcases, their bodies in suitcases, and bring them on the bus and take them to wherever he was going to dump them. So when that came out, it was like, oh, this is going to cost you an arm and a leg.
What is?
Like anything. Like, so he's paying the bus fare, but he was bringing arms and legs in his suitcases. So that was where the
But he wasn't paying someone with the arm or the leg.
Right, but it was, why are you doing this?
So basically,
I'm giving you cool information.
Basically, Ward A. Manuel and the playoff committee came up with that phrase because it makes very little sense the way you said it.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's like if who is Jack the Ripper? If Jack the Ripper said, "Hey,
Nick's so upset.
You want to go on a date with me? Then I'm going to kill you and take off your arm and leg." Well, that date cost them an arm and a leg. But if he just went and haphazardly chopped people up, they didn't agree to anything.
Speaking of legs, when somebody says, "Hey, break a leg out there," I always thought it meant you're like, what does that mean?
What, do you sit and research sayings?
Can you relax and let me finish?
I had no idea you did this.
Okay, so I thought it meant like your leg, like break a leg. But in the Shakespearean era theater, the floors were made of wood and the seats were made of wood. And instead of applauding to make more noise, they'd stand up out of their chair after an act was done and they'd bang their chairs on the wooden floor. And you'd want to have a performance so grandiose that they would break the legs of the chair. So that's where break a leg comes from.
I feel like you would be sitting at said show.
I'm not a theater guy.
In the, I went and saw the Nutcracker a year ago at this time, and I decided I'm not a theater guy either.
I don't get it.
Although there were more songs in the Nutcracker that you would know that you didn't know were in there. Like, like these little dun 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 dun.
It's like background Christmas music.
I think it's like, is it Beethoven? I don't know who. It might be Beethoven. Who? Tchaikovsky. Oh, it's a very Christmas guy, Tchaikovsky. Like I feel like he's, huh?
Is that like tongue in cheek?
No. I just feel like that you associate him with Christmas, and I guess that's
I thought
why.
he had like some maybe old tweets that people dug up.
You ever hear the song "Rock Me Amadeus"?
Yeah, it's weird.
It is. I'm going to play it for you, and another one about these guys. There was a song back in the day that was just as weird. There was one about these guys in Vietnam.
Comes up whenever I listen to like best 80s music. That's why I don't like the 80s music. I know
You gotta rock me Amadeus.
It's so weird.
It's such a stupid the fact when you were a little kid
shopping.
you
Can we
would
go Christmas shopping?
Where are you going?
I'm going to CC Creations.
Oh.
But I can't give you any more detail than that because my family members might be listening.
They might be, they might not be.
Yeah. All right. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Nick. Thanks for staying around.
Nick, thanks, man. Sorry to ruin your day by keeping you for 17 extra minutes. I know.
All right.
18. We got to go.